The FNRad Snowboard podcast is presented by Vans. Before I start the last episode of Season 7, I need to put in a trigger warning. George Pappas and I talk about hard drugs, attempted murder, and suicide. Please be in the right headspace before you listen, and if you or your loved ones need help with suicidal thoughts or feelings, the Canadian Suicide Hotline is 1-833-456-4566, and the U.S. Suicide Hotline is 1-800-273-TALK, 1-800-273-8255.
Hey everyone, this is George. Before you guys listen to this story, I just want to be upfront and clear and let you know that I tried to kill another human being in myself, and it's forever changed me. Take full responsibility for it. And believe me, I understand the gravity of doing something like this. I spend every day trying to make amends for the harm I've caused, including this. I don't want anyone to think that it's cool or okay, or in no way am I trying to glorify it. I've tried to compress 50 years of living and snowboarding and skating into this 2 hours, but I want to make sure to express my responsibility for all my actions. And I work one day at a time to make amends. So if you're still suffering in your addiction or self-destructive behaviors, reach out to someone in 12 steps or ask for help somewhere or somehow. It's never too late to turn it all around. And I hope that after listening to this story that you agree with me. I'm not glossing over any action, especially ones that cause harm to others. I could speak for hours and hours on this alone, but we only have limited time. And with the time that we have left, enjoy the ride.
Season 7 of FNRad is sponsored by Wired Snowboards, the Boardroom Snowboard Shop, Anon Optics, Time Bomb Trading, and Tribute Board Shop in Nelson, BC. Support also comes from Mount Seymour, Grouse Mountain, New Green Superfood Drink, Volcom Outerwear, and Intuition Heat Moldable Boot Liners. Thanks to everyone who supports the show. The final guest of Season 7 is George Pappas Jr. Way back in the early 90s, my best friend Chris bought a Mistral George Pappas from Skaters Pro in Sudbury, Ontario, and I called it the celery stalk to tease him from the weird shape on the nose and tail. Eventually, I bought that board from Chris, and it rode really good. Before he was on Mistral, George Pappas was the original team rider for Kemper Snowboards, and way before that, he was a competitive skateboarder in the late 70s. George's life includes some incredible highs and one unbelievable low. Strap in for a crazy ride. I'm extremely proud and stoked to bring you this interview with George Pappas.
Kemper was the first year that I did it.
Yeah.
And no, I didn't work at all.
None.
No.
Yeah.
Pro snowboarder. I made $250 a month.
Okay.
Jamie bought my season pass. He paid all my travel expenses.
Yeah.
Gave me a victory schedule.
What's a victory schedule?
Victory schedules was he matched my winnings. Every time if I won $500 or $1,000, he would match my winnings. And he gave me a photo incentives. I don't know specifically how much. I think a full page photo in the magazine was worth $1,000.
Yeah,
the cover shot was worth X amount.
$10,000 or something, probably $5,000.
Not that much. Not that much back then.
Sure. I decided to reach out to George after Jamie Salter's interview. I knew he'd gone to prison for 13 years about 5 years ago, so I wasn't even sure if I could get in touch with him. Long story short, his brother Chris gave me his phone number. 15 minutes, I went from, I wonder if I can get in touch with you, to being on the phone with you.
Yeah.
And I was
remember that.
Holy shit. Holy shit. And then the story you told me about Jamie Salter, not only did you solidify that what he was saying was true.
Yep.
That the story was way, way more wild of a ride than I could have ever imagined. I loved it. I loved it so much. I got off the phone with you and I was like, that's truth is better than fiction. Like, this is, your life is so sick. So,
Thanks,
yeah. And here I am in Boulder and in your new house. So you just bought this thing with a partner and you own a house.
Yeah. I can't believe I'm still pinching myself.
Yeah, that's dope.
I can't fucking believe it.
Yeah.
7.5 months out of prison, and I've got admittedly a crack shack, but it's in Boulder. It's $500,000.
This is sick, dude.
So,
yeah.
And I'm a partner in it, and I own it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do wood floors for a living.
Yeah.
And we're going to build an accessory dwelling unit, mother-in-law apartment on the back.
Perfect.
Yeah, I've never done something like this, and it scares the hell out of me, man.
Yeah.
I'm terrified, but
yeah.
You got to walk through my fear and do this.
Yeah.
At
this point in your life, you're probably the healthiest that you've ever been.
Mentally and emotionally, absolutely. Physically, it's a challenge, man.
Yeah.
I beat the shit out of myself hardcore my whole life, but I'm getting it back. I can do the work.
Yeah.
And today, so I've been in recovery for 5 years. My thinking has changed and everything has changed. I was at a 12-step meeting today, and they read the reading of the day was, it was, suppose your higher power gave you a brand new car and a new house and all your wildest dreams, quadrupled your salary. I could pull it up on my phone and read it to you right now. And so they read this reading, they call it the Just for Today. That's the reading that they read at the beginning of the meeting, and then we share on that. And as they're reading this, they say, what would you do with that money? Did you think that you didn't deserve it, or that you were a fraud and that you had to earn this money? And I sat there and thought about it. And when I shared in the meeting, what I said was, you know what, my higher power, which to me is which is love and the power of attraction. My higher power wants me to succeed, and my higher power gives me so many opportunities in my life. And my whole life, me, George, this ego that I have has always felt that I don't deserve this. And I've always just been terrified that I'm not going to be able to perform. And here I am. The opportunity I have with this house is fucking unbelievable. It doesn't happen. But someone offered me hey, man, I'll put you on the deed of this house if you do the sweat equity and do it. Just a guy that I met a few months ago.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, I'm doing the thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fucking scary, man.
That's a pretty deep coincidence. Do they know that you just got this house?
No, they didn't. As a matter of fact, I had to recruit my sponsor and a couple other guys to come move this couch that you're sitting on right now.
That's so sick, dude.
Yeah, my sister found a couch on Craigslist today, and she gave me the number to the people that were selling it, and it turns out that they're right across the fucking street.
That's so dope. It's amazing.
So I brought a few guys over. We loaded the couch over here. This is my first piece of furniture. Yeah, except for this one that came with the house.
Oh, nice. So. Yeah, let's go back to the beginning. I think because, what was it like for you growing up as a kid? You've got a sister and a younger brother.
So I got 5 older sisters.
5 older sisters.
5
Holy
older
shit!
brothers. I'm the youngest of 11.
No fucking way. Oh my God. And did you guys grow up in Colorado? Or?
So we grew up right here in Boulder, just on the other side of town.
What's the spread to oldest to youngest?
So my mom had 11 kids before the age of 30. She had her first kid when she was 17, so she had 11 kids in basically 12 years.
Yeah.
My oldest sister's 12 years older than I am. So my mom was barefoot and pregnant all the way to age 30 and then had 11 kids.
Holy shit.
She's still alive.
That's nuts.
She's barely hanging on. Yeah, she's a saint.
Sadly, shortly after we recorded this, George's mom, Charlene Rosalie Pappas, passed away on January 23rd, 2022, following a lifetime of giving to her family, church, and community. In 1952, she'd married George Pappas and immediately started a family with 11 kids, George Jr. being the youngest, born just before her 31st birthday. When asked how she could love so many children, she replied, quote, "Love doesn't divide, it multiplies." 11 kids. And was there a dad in the picture as well?
Yeah, dad was involved. He passed away when I was in prison.
Oh, wow. Sorry to hear that, dude.
Yeah, it was, it is what it is. We had time to prepare for it. It wasn't too sudden. But,
yeah.
But still, it's just what it is.
So your big family, how do you guys get involved in skateboarding?
So in 5th grade is when they came out with urethane wheels.
Okay.
It was probably, I think, like 74, 75. I started skating right then. The school that I went to, the playground was also the parking lot for the church. So they would let us bring our skateboards and we could ride our skateboards at recess.
Sick.
And yeah, so that's when I started skating.
What's the skate scene like in the 70s? I mean, you're in school, you're skating in the parking lot.
Yeah, so it was like old school bonsai boards with Cadillac open bearing wheels and Excalibur trucks, which are, it probably sounds like a foreign language to a lot of the kids listening to this, but open bearing wheels where, you put ball bearings in the wheels, screw them down like on a roller skate.
Yeah.
We bought our boards at Kmart. There was no skateboard shop in town. We go to Kmart and it was just like, we're kids in a candy store, and just me and a couple buddies of mine were so into it and skating all the time. There was a skateboard contest up on the hill in Boulder, and I went up there just by pure luck. Got second place in the slalom.
Oh, sick
contest. So I won a set of wheels, Kryptonics Hot Pinks.
Nice.
Then I tried out for the skateboard team at the local shop, and I made the team, and I started skating.
It can't be just luck then. You had enough skill to get on the team, and you had enough skill to get second at the thing.
Well, luck is the intersection of hard work and opportunity.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, and hard work for me was all totally fun play.
Yeah. Rad.
I hear hard work with skateboarding. I'm like, hell no, it was fucking fun playing.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of it. And the opportunity was I was at the right place at the right time. 4 of the guys fell. I made it through the course.
Sick.
And I won a set of wheels, and I was fucking, I was like, hell yeah, second place.
Yeah.
I was stoked.
What was the shop that sponsored you?
I got sponsored by the Sidewalk Surf Shop skateboard team here in Boulder.
Sick.
This was like right when the downtown Boulder Mall was just being built.
Yeah.
And there was a skateboard shop downtown, and they had tryouts for the team. And
So
we
sick.
went down there, and I did the tryouts, and it was like I could do tic tacs and a little bit of walk the dog. And I could do like a 360. And
Man.
You're on the team, Pappas. Hell yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So when I tried out for the Sidewalk Surf Shop team, I got on the team, and it was me, a kid I grew up with from my elementary school, Mike Crossan, and Pernack, who was into slalom, and this kid named Shane Enholm. And I met Shane. He's like, dude, do you smoke? And I'm like, yeah, I smoke. We were fucking thick as thieves, bro. We went back to his house, and he introduced me to the Rolling Stones.
Wow.
He introduced me to Led Zepp 2.
Damn.
And Let It Bleed. It changed my fucking life. And Shane was original OG punk rock skater. Man, he was the real deal at age 13. Dude already had tattoos. We ended up here in the same neighborhood that we're in, Martin Acres in Boulder. I think the statute of limitations is up, but one night we might have found ourselves in a stolen van from a boys' home that was in the neighborhood. I don't remember exactly how it happened. I think Shane was driving. I don't know. We rode with him and some of the hardcore skaters from Denver. We went and rode the Cherry Creek full pipe before they filled it with tar. We rode the Health Bowl in Denver. There are very few of you skaters from back in the day know the Health Bowl is just a health club that was at Sheridan and US 36 that was no longer, and with good vert, we went and skated that. And Shane didn't give a shit about competition. He didn't give a shit about freestyle or slalom or anything like that. He was just fucking hardcore skater. And dude is the real deal. He ended up doing some time. He was the ponytail bandit. He robbed 27 banks in LA.
Come on. That's too fucking awesome.
Wound up. Penthouse Magazine did an article on him in, I think it was the January 2017 issue or something like that. I haven't read it. Shane told me about it. Dude wrote a letter to the judge on my behalf when I was getting sentenced. And I'm firmly convinced that it helped me to get less. I only got 13 years. Could have got a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some great friends that wrote letters for me. Yeah, Shane's just the real deal, man. I got to give him props. He was instrumental in my formative years. He's just unreal. He's just the most authentic skater that, he should be a picture of Shane Enholm, next to Jay Adams when you open up the dictionary and look at the skateboard. He didn't give a fuck about anything. However, he gives me respect.
Yeah.
Also, and that makes me respect him even more. The guy's just a phenomenal person, and he's now a tattoo historian. He's written a book called The Tattoo Machine Discourse. He's been on several podcasts, and the dude has helped me out since I got out of prison. He's just been one of the most solid guys in my life, and I fucking love them.
Shane.
And home.
So I was skating right there, and then there was George. See, I'm such a nut that I think he's as hip as me. So I didn't know that I was turning him on to this shit, because probably George didn't want me to know that he didn't know. But then we got on that team. Yeah, I surf skated. I entered freestyle competitions, but I watched George. I wasn't paying attention, I guess, because he really excelled in slalom skating. I mean, I watched him. One day we were on these little teams, and the next thing you know, he's on Sims. And then the next thing you know, he's constantly winning. And like George, like, I knew this girl that would bone us. And so I took him up there with me. And the first time I slept with her, and the second time I was like, George, have her. And he jumped, and it was like, that kind of bonded us for the rest of our life. I know it's weird, but it's kid shit. It's 12, and we were 12 and 13, I think, at the time. Yeah, his family was very normal. Mine was insane. And then the only normalcy I had was in like group homes. So when I'd get thrown in the group home, then I'd get out, I'd be with my mom and skate. But George had this big family. Chris Pappas, his brother. So I would see George intermittently, as like I ended up on the streets from the time I was like 13 or 14 on. And George, I think he went to high school, I guess. So one time I saw him, I was in court, and I was fighting all these pharmacy robberies. And my crime partner is another famous snowboarder, but I'm not going to name him. When we're off the air, I'll tell you who it is. But I was in court, and George was in there. I couldn't believe it. And his mom was there, and his mom was just a sweetheart, wonderful woman. Anyway, so we would stay in touch a little bit, because I was busy in punk rock, and then I went to prison. And I remember seeing him on the cover of a Snowboard magazine while I was in there, and I was like, what the But it didn't surprise me. Sometime he got a hold of me, but he was messed up. See, George's only problem, like many of us, was drugs. So when this happened with the case, his sister called me, and I knew at his age, the crime that he committed, because, think about it, okay? He's going to kill himself. It wasn't about killing her. It's about killing both of them. I know that people demonize it, and it was a horrible thing that happened. But George was on drugs. He was on drugs. I mean, that was George's bottom. And unfortunately, George's bottom was witnessed by all of us. Some of us have bottoms that nobody sees. And so, yeah, his sister called, and I think I helped him with his bail, but then I wrote the judge. I was scared because George is like 50, I think. I think about that in my life because I spent so much time in prison, and I've been out a long time now, and God bless, and but I think about at my age, I couldn't get a 13-year sentence or a 15-year. I don't have it left in me, So when George was facing that, that's what I thought about. So I wrote the judge, and I told the judge that I'd known him my whole life and that he was an excellent athlete. If you didn't throw him away for good, if he was on drugs, and I believe that if we just did enough time to get his head straight, that we would see him better. And he did it. There's good things in store for George. There's good things. I really believe that, because I see it's not our victories. Like, everybody counts all these guys. Oh, they won this medal. They did this in skating, whatever. But it's our defeats that define us, and how we get back up from our defeats. And that's what we're witnessing now with George. I talked to him yesterday, and he's getting off parole so he can go to Argentina and skate in the World Cup or whatever. And I told him that when I got off parole, the day I got parole, I went and got heroin and got loaded. And then it was back to trouble again because I wasn't being tested. So I was scared, and I was like, George, listen to me now. I just want to tell you. And he said, Shane, I've been off testing for 4 months. And then I just thought, okay, so he's good, man. He's got it. See, we only keep what we give away. And George has a lot to give us all. It isn't the help we get, it's the help we give. It's the way I've stayed out of prison 30 years. So if he stays helping people, he'll be okay.
Back then it was all the skateboard shops had teams, and they had a skateboard circuit. It was called Another Roadside Attraction. As a matter of fact, the guy that was running it, this guy named Peter Kamen, is just coming out with a book right now. That talks about the whole Colorado skateboard race series.
Oh, rad.
And what happened was at that race, some of the pros from California showed up, and there's these two pros, Tommy Ryan and Bobby Piercy, that were like, the blonde-headed surfer guys that were just fucking unbelievably fast on the skateboard. And I remember watching these guys go through the course, and I see Bobby Piercy come flying down the course, and at the bottom of the course, he threw it sideways and just did a standing slide to a stop. And I was like, holy fucking shit. It just fucking blew my mind. It's like, I'm going to do that.
Rad.
I want to be that.
Rad.
And he rode for the Sims team, and for the rest of the summer, those guys came. There was a few more races, and I was like, I want to be on the Sims team. I want to be on the Sims team. And I kept bugging him. Put me on the Sims team, man. I want to ride for Sims. And, I bugged him so much. Finally, he threw me a couple T-shirts and some stickers and a set of wheels. That, all right, George, you're on the team.
When you're saying you're talking Tom Sims?
Talking Bobby Piercy.
Bobby Piercy.
Who was like one of the skateboard gods at the time.
Top tier.
In the mid-70s.
Yeah.
And so after that, I was like, I'm sponsored by Sims now. They gave me a Sims team T-shirt, and it was like the coolest fucking thing ever.
Dope.
And so me and this other dude, George Walker, who's a buddy of mine, both got sponsored by Sims. Yeah, it was badass.
That's a fucking big deal. Yeah.
It was a big deal for Colorado kids. And back then it was like, there was no internet. There was no videos. It was Skateboarder magazine. Yeah. And that's, for a kid in Boulder, all I ever saw was pictures in Skateboarder magazine. It was like Laura Thornhill spinning 360s, or, Tom Inouye doing a grinder, Lonnie Toft, Jay Adams. And, we're looking at these guys in the magazines, and that was, it wasn't real to us until I went to that contest and I saw these guys for real live. Yeah. It fucking blew my mind. And it was like, I'm going to be a pro, this is what I'm going to do.
And what age are you at that time? 12 years old.
Right.
12 years old. So how long do you work on that for?
So that summer of 12 years old was like the turning point in my life. I skated that summer, and I did really well. I met up with a guy, one of my mentors. He was like one of my heroes, this guy named Dave Pernick. He was on the team with me, and he was like 15 at the time. And when you're 12, a 15-year-old is a big kid,
Yeah. Yep.
And he and I skated, and we trained. He was a ski racer, so he got super technical about it. We'd watch each other's runs, and we'd set different kinds of courses, and we'd geek out with our setups, and we rode all the time. We both did great. He won. I was in the elementary school division, and that summer I won the whole division. Perdak took I think he won the junior high school division. He was fast enough to be a pro at the time.
Damn.
And I was right behind him, but I was 12 years old. I was barely even in puberty at that time.
Yeah.
But I was still fast, but I just didn't have the strength to really go full on into it. Yeah. So that summer, by the end of the summer, I was the cool kid in the neighborhood. I thought I was the cool kid in the neighborhood.
Sure.
And, my brother, Chris, who's a year older than me, you all know who Chris is.
Yeah.
He didn't get sponsored because he had some kind of responsibility and didn't show up for the tryouts, didn't make the team, was every bit as good as I was, but he just didn't have the opportunity. He wasn't there in the right place at the right time, and I was. Right. And, by the end of the summer, my head got big, man. I was winning contests, and I thought I was the cool kid, and I thought Chris was fucking tagging along, and I had some resentments. And one night at the end of the summer, it was probably right at the beginning. It was like a week before school started. And I was going into 8th grade. Chris is going into 9th grade. And me and all my buddies were going to Elish's. And I was like, fuck Chris. I don't want him to go because he's been tagging along all the time and shit. So let's ditch him. And we ditched him. And we went to Elish's, and when we got home, my sister and my mom were there, and my sister said, George, sit on the couch. She goes, Chris went up Boulder Canyon and got in a car accident. He's in the hospital right now. They might have to amputate both his legs. And it was fucking brutal, man. I went down to the hospital, and there's Chris with a cast on each leg. Totally knocked out on whatever painkillers, and you had these 2 casts, and both of them were blood red from all the blood that had soaked through. Oh. And this is like 76 or 77, I'm not sure which, but way before they would do any kind of bone splicing or screwing shit back together.
Yeah.
They just like, set his legs the best they could. What happened is he hooked up with some people and got in a car accident. They rolled the Jeep and the roll bar. The story is the roll bar of the Jeep went across his legs, right on his tib fib, crushed right across the growth line on one leg, but not the other. And so anyway, it was brutal. It was a big wake up call. And so he was in a wheelchair for the whole next year. The next summer, I went and did the ARA, another roadside attraction skateboard series. And I was 13 that next year. And so I went and I did all the races it was the age group was called junior high school. So it was 13 to 15.
Yeah.
And we brought Chris, who was in a wheelchair, and he was the kid in the wheelchair that was getting stickers from all the pros. And, everywhere, everything I did, Chris was always there. We brought him to everything. And, he was living vicariously through me. But also his stoke is what kept me skateboarding.
Oh, that's dope.
Another thing that summer when I was 12 years old was I started getting stoned.
Mm-hmm.
I went to that skateboard race and then, and I started smoking weed that same summer. Chris started smoking weed with me. I shouldn't out him like this, but that's cool. Sorry, Chris. And
that's early to be smoking weed, man.
And I also got laid that first summer. So in 12-year-old George's mind,
Jesus Christ, 12 years old. Christ.
12-year-old George's mind, drugs equals sex equals skateboarding.
Wow.
Those are the connections that I made.
Wow.
And it was, skateboarding was friends and girls and everything. That was, it was like sex, drugs, and rock and roll, sex, drugs, and skateboarding.
Yeah.
For George. So those are the connections that I made in my mind that traveled. I dragged that, and I had some other negative core beliefs that I dragged through my life also, that I'll talk about in a little while. But
sure.
But that next summer, we told Chris along with us, and I fucking killed it. I won the whole junior high skateboard, the whole division. I won the whole fucking thing.
And you were a young kid in it.
And I was 13.
Yeah.
The age group was 13 to 15, and I was 13, and I won the whole fucking thing. And
damn, man.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was fucking killer. And, so the next year, some of my buddies were down on the mall, and they met some old dude came up and started talking to him and asked him if they knew anyone that's into skateboarding. And they go, "Yeah, man, our friend George skates all the time." And turns out this guy's name is Bill Reardon, who was back in the 70s. He was a vice president of NBC Sports World NBC Sports World.
Wow.
He was also a skateboard promoter. And he called me up and he goes, "Hey, man, I want to watch you skate." So me and Pernak went and we set up some cones, and I skated through the cones, did some slalom. And he's like, "Wow, pretty cool, George." And a couple weeks later, he called me up, and this is the summer between 8th and 9th grade. So I was 13.
Yeah.
So he calls me up and goes, "Hey, George, I really like watching you skate. We're doing some promotional stuff in Caracas. I'll pay you $500 if you come down to Caracas for a week and do some exhibitions with us. What do you say?"
Oh,
and I'm like, "Mom, can I go to Caracas?" I don't even know where Caracas was.
I don't know where it is.
It's Venezuela.
Oh,
so,
Jesus.
A month later, I'm on a fucking flight with all of my heroes that I've been looking at in fucking Skateboarder magazine. I'm with them on a plane on my way to Caracas to do skateboard exhibitions.
I'm cutting in here with a quick fact check report because this claim sounded impossible to me. Bill Reardon, who died in 1991, was indeed a world-famous sports promoter who's mostly remembered for winner-takes-all big-money tennis matches. But in 1975, Bill Reardon signed Ty Page, one of the stars of the Makaha skateboard team, which was assembled in the 70s to promote the invention of the kicktail and is widely held to be a contender with the Dogtown team for the best skateboarding team ever assembled. Ty Page, or Mr. Incredible, as he was known, invented many of the fundamental freestyle skateboard tricks. And I think Ty was wrongfully represented in the Lords of Dogtown as one of those square lamos watching Jay Adams change skateboarding forever in the seminal contest scene. Ty Page was already making $100,000 a year and owning an oceanfront apartment in Alfa Romeo Spider by the time he was 19. He was doing skateboard commercials in the 70s for Wendy's and Sunny D. All this to say, Bill Reardon did put together a skateboard demo in Venezuela at exactly the time George says he went on it. I checked with some of the skaters who George remembers being on the trip, and one of them, Greg Ayers, vaguely remembers George, but says he probably wouldn't have hung out with him much because George was so much younger. Greg also mentioned that he's never seen a photo from that trip. I've gone down many 70s skateboarding rabbit holes, including the 540-page book George mentions, which matches George's memory exactly. He got third in elementary men's when he was 12 and first overall in junior at age 13, beating guys like Steve Klassen and Andy Brewer. I think it's true that George went to Venezuela with his childhood skateboarding heroes and got $500 from Bill Reardon. I think Bill convinced local kids to connect him with a local kid who rips. Boulder was home to a mining wheel company that struck gold with skateboard wheels. You might have heard of them, Kryptonics. And that roadside attraction event even attracted skateboarding superstars like Henry Hester and the great Jay Adams. Boulder was a legit hub of 70s skateboarding, and George was a young star competitor.
It just happened. And
That's
I made it
just
down there, and
unreal.
You know, it was who I went with was Chris Chappett, Laura Thornhill, Ellen O'Neill, Lori Rary, Paul Hoffman, Greg Ayers, and a lot of these names are going to ring a lot with a lot of people.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I mean, these are my fucking heroes.
Yes.
Yeah. So I went down there, and I was just this fucking 14-year-old kid from Boulder, and the next youngest person there was like 18. So these are all big kids. I'm just this little kid.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was like, I was like,
how do you get there? Like, do they send you a ticket and your parents drop you off at the Denver airport and you just fucking
kind of,
yeah.
That's kind of what my sister.
You have a passport or anything?
I had to get a passport.
Oh God.
My sister flew for United Airlines.
Oh, okay.
So they flew me to LA.
Yeah.
My sister went to LA with me. I met this guy's name was Jack, and he was like the chaperone or the guy that was putting it together. And
yeah.
So we got on this plane, and I'm on this plane with all these freaking crazy skaters from Cali.
Yeah.
And I was just like a deer in the headlights the whole time. I couldn't believe it. And we got to the airport in Caracas, and these guys all jumped on their skates and they're skating through the airport. There's like, there was a bunch of kids waiting there behind the line. It was like we were fucking rock stars or something, waiting for us to show up.
Wow.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. We were in the airport there. The cops grabbed us and pulled us all in. Apparently someone had said something that someone was doing drugs on the plane or something, but they strip searched everyone. And I was just like, holy shit. It blew my mind.
Yeah.
Then they brought us straight to a limo, took us to all these autograph signing parties and to these like elite clubs where they take us straight to the back room with drugs on the table. And at 14, I was just like, it was unbelievable.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, it was fucked up. I mean, it wasn't fucked up. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But they'd offered us drugs, but Jack like put the kibosh on that, especially with me, that they weren't bringing me anything. So anyway, at that point in my life, I was like, this is the life. I'm going to be a pro skater.
Yeah.
Then the whole skateboard racing died. Skateboard contests died. All the parks closed and skating went underground.
Yeah.
And so, as far as street skating or any kind of vert or anything like that, it was still a thing. But slalom skateboarding, which was what I was first introduced to, and which is what I was good at. I skate vert and I do other things, but that was my first experience, and that was my first real like passion in skating. Completely died.
Yeah.
There was no contest. I mean, there was a few contests here and there, but the sport died. And over the next couple of years, it just all went underground. And let's see, 1979, in the back of, I think it was 79. Chris was out of his wheelchair, and we saw in the back of Skateboarder magazine an ad, a little tiny, half a column ad for winter stick snowboards.
Oh, sick.
And we're like, let's fucking buy Chris is like, we're buying one.
What'd you do with that $500? Like, do you come back with the $500 and put it in a bank account, or do you just spend it like a 14-year-old kid?
I don't even.
You give it to your parents?
No, I didn't give it to him. I don't really remember what I did with money.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. That's like 20 grand or something for a kid today, or 5 grand or something. Like, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, I used it. I probably bought weed with it and skateboard. More skates and stuff.
It's unreal. Okay, sorry to throw you off there.
It's all right.
Because so 79, you see the winter stick.
Yeah, so we bought a winter stick, and Chris was really the impetus to me getting started in snowboarding. He was just so stoked. Chris had the stoke for skating, and he came into it. I was an addict, dude, from age 12. Wow. I got stoned, and it was like all my shit fell away, and that's what I did, is I just wanted to smoke pot. After Chris got in that accident, that's all I did, was just every day I had to be stoned all the time just so I couldn't feel, because I didn't even know why at the time. I didn't even know what I was running from, or what it was that I didn't want to feel. But Chris, on the other hand, even though he broke both his legs, they eventually healed. He ended up with 2 fused ankles. One of his legs where it was broken across the growth line is 2 inches shorter than the other leg.
Oh, wow.
He had limited mobility, but he could fucking walk.
Yeah.
And, he tried to skate and stuff, but you need ankle range of motion to skate.
Big time.
You just do.
Yeah.
And, he did gymnastics at school. He couldn't do floor X or anything like that, but the dude could do a fucking V seat and touch his knees to his nose. He probably still can today. I mean, you should see the dude do a layback air on his snowboard. It's fucking unbelievable.
Yeah. Nice.
And he can still do it now. He's 58. He'll do it for you tomorrow.
Oh, that's awesome.
On a freaking little tiny bump. It's unreal.
I love it.
I can't believe it. But so Chris he was so stoked. He really kept me riding. And when we saw that fucking board in the back of Skateboard Magazine, we bought one right away. And I bought it because I had a job. I was washing dishes or something. I had the money, so I bought it.
Yeah.
And I took it to school, and I took it to school at Boulder High, and people were like, "Oh, what the hell is that?" And I hadn't even ridden. I had just picked it up. I think I don't know why I had it at school. Like, I picked it up at the skateboard shop. I brought it to Boulder High, and Kevin saw it. Kevin Delaney saw it. He's like, "Holy shit, George, what the fuck is that?" And he's like, "Let's go ride it." And I'm like, "All right, hell yeah." So we go out by the football field right next to the bleachers. There was like maybe a solid 8 inches of snow on the ground on the grass next to the bleachers.
Yep.
So we're talking probably 20-degree angle.
Yeah.
I mean, steep.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And Kevin goes, "Okay, well, what do we do?" And I go, "Well, you just fucking, I had these bungee cord for binding." Kevin steps on it, grabs it out of my hands, puts both feet in, steps on it, and fucking board shoots out underneath him, flies down the hill, hits a cement wall, splits the nose wide open. And I'm like, "Damn, dude." And so I took in, I called Dimitri, and I'm like, "Dude, this board de-limbed. I don't know what happened. Fuck." And so I sent it back to him, and he's like, "Bro, what'd you do? Hit a cement wall with this thing?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Man, I don't know. It just de-limbed." And he replaced it for us. And
what a bro. What a dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it was, I don't know if it was the first winter stick sold in Colorado. Who knows? But it was definitely one of the first.
It was early.
Yeah, early. And then Chris bought it, and we still have that board. It's at that board itself is at the Colorado Snowboard Museum.
Rad.
Yeah.
Rad.
And so Chris bought a Swallowtail, and then we were in business. We had 2 boards, me and Kevin, Dave Dowd, our buddy Scott Seibert. We rode like local hills up here. We'd go up to NCAR. We'd go to Pine Brook Hills and just find the steepest thing that we could and ride it. Then we graduated to Berthoud Pass, where we go up there, and Loveland Pass. And, people don't understand that what a winter stick was back then. It's a board shaped like a surfboard with a fucking skeg on the bottom and bungee cord on top with surf channels and PTEX. And it was way technologically ahead of anything.
Oh yeah.
Any board, and this was way before Burton boards or Sims boards had hit our realm anyway.
Yeah.
And so it was, hard pack or ice was like the fucking devil. It was not, we didn't even consider ever riding on anything except for powder. And, back in those days, we go up to, up at Berthoud, we ride off either side of the pass. We do Hell's Half Acre on one side, or I don't know what the run on the other side was, but, you put your feet under the straps, and it's a lot like they do. I don't even know what they call it now with the
no boarding or PAL surfing. Yeah.
But that's what we do, so I'd stand on the board, and it had a fucking leash that when you went off the board, the leash would pull the pin out of the skeg, and the skeg would pop down and the board would stop.
Oh my God. That's so rad.
So it was that, like, if you stood on the board and you made like 7 or 8 length turns before you ate shit, that was fucking unreal, and you do a top to bottom, was like fucking epic, and we did that up at, like, when we would ride Berthoud, we'd go down, and if we weren't doing road runs where someone was driving, every car would stop and pick us up.
Oh, that's dope.
We stick our thumbs out. The first car that came by, be like, holy shit, what is that? Wow. And we get in the car and we tell them, man, it's called, it's called the fucking winter stick, man. We're winter sticking.
Yeah.
They're like, really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's the coolest fucking thing. And it wasn't even called snowboarding yet.
Yeah.
That was like 3 years before anyone coined the name snowboard.
That's fucking awesome.
And, we called it scurfing or winter sticking.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. It was so novel that every car, all the skiers, everyone wanted to know what it was. Yeah, it was fucking unreal.
Did you guys get pretty good doing those road shots?
No. I look back on it now. I still, like, the biggest thing I ever did was just stand on the fucking thing, carve a few turns. We started doing Bull 90 a couple of years later. And, once we got Sims boards, and once the whole evolution came to where we got boards with bindings, and then high backs came out. And, that's where, for me, it was just fun. But like I said, I was an addict, man. I was busy getting high. Chris was so fucking into it. He was calling Tom all the time, like, we need to get a new board. Once we got Sims boards, the first boards we had these like little cup bindings made out of nylon with a Velcro toe strap and a Velcro one that came over, the top of your foot.
Yeah.
No high back.
Yeah.
No metal edges. Still had surf channels on it. And it was fucking unbelievable. It was like a quantum leap in our ability. Now we could stay on the board, and, it still had a leash, but it was way better than the winter stick was, as far as, because the winter stick had no bindings.
Right.
If we had to put bindings on the winter stick, that would have been a different story. But, so we rode for a season with that. And then the next season, and I don't even know what years are correct, but I'm going to say it was like 83. We had cup bindings. 84, Sims put metal edges on it. And then like 85 or so, he put high backs on it.
Yeah.
You'll have to check with Jeff Grell or look it up in the fucking history books.
Are you guys getting these boards? Are you paying for them?
Yeah, we're paying for them.
You're paying them. You're just buying them retail.
Chris was doing most of the calling, talking to Tom. And, I talked to him a few times when I was still sponsored as a skater.
Yeah.
But yeah, Chris was the stoke behind the whole snowboarding scene in Boulder. I mean, he was running it. Dowd was into it. Kevin got into it, but Chris was the one that just was like the leader of the pack, getting us out there. It was unbelievable. And then I bailed. I fell in love, went crazy, got a job, and didn't snowboard for a couple years. And Chris moved up to Jackson, became the first snowboard instructor at Jackson. Dowd moved to fucking Summit County. Kevin went to Telluride, or Kevin was riding Eldora. And those guys got really fucking good. And I was still stuck in the powder days without riding high backs, and with, my skills were low. And one day those guys pulled me away from the pipe and brought me up to Loveland Pass. And I had never done the road runs that they were doing on Loveland. We had always hiked out and hit the POW. And Chris straps in his board and dropped into the trees, and watching him drop in and just unbelievably ripped through the trees blew my mind as much as watching Piercy do a sliding stop at the bottom of the slalom course. I was like, fucking A.
Yeah.
I could not believe it.
Yeah.
And my skills were not even close to anything like that.
Right.
I had a taste of it and I saw what these guys were doing. And they made me want to snowboard, but the drugs were still, at that time, I started doing a lot of coke and living in Denver, getting caught up in the whole city scene. So right when I turned 21, I got 2 DUIs within 2 months. Lost my license. I had a job as a salesman selling door to door, and I couldn't do that anymore. I sold shoes in downtown Denver and did drugs. I was living over near Cramner Park in Denver, and I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna snowboard. So I'm gonna get a job. Those guys, because they were having so much fun doing it. I was like, I want to do that. So I fucking hitchhiked. I left Denver. So Cramner Park is like third in Colorado and Denver. I walked out to Colorado Boulevard, stuck my thumb out, hitchhiked to I-70, stood on I-70, hitchhiked up I-70 to Keystone, got a job, and then saw a for rent sign. I got a job and a place to live, and hitchhiked to Boulder all same day. All right, back to Denver. To Denver, I mean.
Wow.
So then I was there. Chris gave me a board. He gave me a Sims 1500 that was retrofit with metal edges and high backs. And I was good. So I showed up at Keystone to work, and the only thing about Keystone is they didn't allow snowboards. I was like,
what? Yeah.
And they said not only that, but they lied, as I remember it, they told me, well, we're going to hire you as a maintenance worker, but you can always change your job, where you have to work 40 hours a week, 8 to 5 every day. But you can still ride on the weekends. And so I showed up. I lasted like 2 days as a maintenance worker. I was like, this is fucking bullshit. I can't even snowboard at the mountain on my brakes because they don't allow snowboarding at Keystone. This is like 86 or something, maybe 86, 87. But they did allow it at A-Basin. Keystone owned A-Basin at the time.
Yeah.
So I lasted like 2 days, quit my job, took my pass. And this is before technology caught up. It was just a printed pass. And I peeled up my pass, and my pass was like number 603. And I changed it. I changed the 6 to an 8, and I changed the 3 to an 8. So my pass became number 808. And in those days, they would have a hot pass list, and the ticket checkers would get $50 if they found someone with a hot pass.
Yeah.
So I still have my pass, but I changed the numbers on it, and so I used that pass the whole year.
Oh wow!
And rode almost there. I switched a job to waiting tables at night, and I hooked up with a tele skier, a really good bump skier, and there was no snowboarders on the mountain that year. I mean, hardly any. So I rode with these guys, and they fucking were riding poly every day, hitting the trees, and they just beat the shit out of me the whole fucking year.
Yeah.
I was just chasing them all year. I snapped my board, broke the tail off of it. Chris gave me a 1600, which was a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And I rode that board. And by the end of the year, in the slush bumps, I was waiting for those guys.
Oh, nice.
I was waiting for the skiers.
Nice.
Because I just increased my skills. And I rode 100 days. I don't know if it was 100 days, but every day that I could ride, I'd wake up, I'd walk out on the porch. If there was fresh snow, I would hitchhike up to the mountain. If it hadn't snowed, I'd go back to bed till noon and ride a half day.
Yeah.
Which is, that's standard for anyone that's a fucking snowboard bum, right?
Yeah, man.
So yeah, that's how I got into it. But I would ride with Dowd. And, Dowd was, he was working at Copper, and I would, with that pass, they used to have a Ski the Summit week, which was 1 week every month. Any employee could ride any area in Summit County. So I could, with my forged pass, I could go to Breck or Copper.
Damn.
And ride. And so I would go ride with Dowd, and his skills were, the dude is unreal. Unreal snowboarder, and it was everything I could do to keep up with the guy at the time. And they were doing I don't know, I don't remember if it's the same year if they were doing contests or anything like that. Maybe it was the next season after that. But
was Dowd riding the hard boots? Yeah, I remember seeing pictures of him with the soft boot and the hard boot.
Well, yeah. So Dave rides regular. So he rode a hard boot on his left foot.
Yeah.
And a soft boot on his right foot.
Yeah.
And Dowd, whatever Dowd was doing, I was doing the same fucking thing because the guy was so good.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to do what you're doing because clearly it works for you.
It's working.
So he gave me his other boot, which was way too big for me. and I would ride stiff boot on front, soft boot on back. And the idea behind it was that, number one, the bindings were so shitty. There was no support.
Totally.
That stiff boot on the front, and it wasn't like a stiff ski boot. It was a Dolomite winter mountaineering boot with half the tongue cut off, super chopped down and super customized.
Yep.
To give us the support up front and the ankle, the mobility and the power up front, and then the tweakability on your back foot so you can bone airs and stuff like that.
Totally.
So it was fucking killer. I rode like that for 3 years. The next year, those guys were racing pro. I think that was like the Zele series.
Okay.
Or maybe it was the year before the Zele series. But I went amateur that year because it was my second year. So the first year I rode A-Basin all year. Then the second year they had a series, which was Copper Mountain. There was a race at Wolf Creek. There was a race at Purgatory. And then World Championships were brick.
Yeah.
So I raced amateur. I was like, dude, I just started riding last year. You guys all got 3 years on me. I'm going amateur.
Yeah.
And so I cleaned up racing amateur and everyone was pissed. They're like, Pappas, you should be pro. And so I'm like, all right, I'll go fucking pro at the last race of the year.
Yeah.
I'm going to race pro at the last year. Well, that year, the last race of the year was World Championships, Breckenridge, which was one of their first ones. And I think it had to be 87. So I went to Denver and I hooked up with this girl. We partied all night and I left and hitchhiked up to the mountain. And it was Saturday morning. World Championships were Saturday. And I'm like, I can make it. I left at the break of dawn and I hitchhiked. And I was living in Dillon at the time. And I got dropped off at City Market in Dillon. And I hiked up the hill to my house to get my snowboard and get all my stuff. And then I was going to go to Breck for the race. And the next thing I knew, it was 6 p.m. and I slept all day and missed the World Championships.
Wow.
I was like,
wow.
So I slept all night, woke up the next day and went to Breck. And I'm like, what did I miss? And it was a fucking bluebird day. It was beautiful. There was the pipe. So I'm like, oh, I'm just going to hike the pipe. So I started hiking the pipe and I ran into there's a dude taking pictures there. And he goes, yeah, my name is Guy Motil. I'm a photographer from Denver. This is Kevin Kinnear. We're going to start a magazine. Can we take your picture? I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. So I had the 1600 that my brother had gave me, and Tom was there. Tom Sims was there, and there was a few other guys there, but most everyone else was like racing GS, or the pipe was empty. I don't know why there wasn't a bunch of pros there or a bunch of people riding, but there was only a few people. And so those guys are like, yeah, George, do this jump. And I'm hitting it. And I blast off this front side air and I land and snap my board right in front of Tom Sims.
No way.
And he's just like, damn. He's like, here, George, ride my board. So he gave me a Kidwell Roundtail to ride.
Wow.
And I was like, hell yeah. And I jumped on that. And those guys took my picture. Then the next year is when they came out with the first issue of Transworld Snowboard magazine.
Yeah.
And I had 3 pictures in the mag on Tom Sims' board. I was like, hell fucking yeah.
Wow.
And they did a little, they had pictures of me in there, pictures of my brother. And actually one of the pictures they gave Chris credit for, but Chris rides regular and I ride goofy. It was actually a picture of me. So I had 3 pictures in that mag.
That's amazing.
And it was fucking, and then all of a sudden I was somebody. And then the next year is when I raced amateur. And that's what kind of got everyone under everyone's skin. They're like, dude, you're in the fucking magazine, you're racing amateur.
Right.
And I'm like, man, I've never been in a contest.
Yeah.
I mean, so anyway, I raced amateur that whole year. And then at the end of the year, they had the World Championships in Breck, and I showed up. 88, I'm going to say. And I got 8th place.
Dope.
Pipe. I don't even know who won, but probably Craig Kelly won, or Kidwell, or Sean Palmer, or
Lamar. Lamar won the 1 year.
Yeah, Lamar could have won, and all those names I just mentioned were all in front of me, and I got 8th place.
Dude,
I think it was like Dan Donnelly ahead of me, maybe John Boyer,
wow,
Ken Achenbach or something, and I was 8th place. And I was fucking pumped, man.
Yeah, yeah.
So
the who's who of
so
snowboarding.
I put together, and well, there was no who, and there was no snowboarding. It was such a new thing.
Yeah.
But there was a magazine now, right?
Yep.
And so I took my 8th place, and I took my skills of being the youngest of 11 kids and always, manipulating everyone. I took my sales skills from being a door-to-door salesman, and I said, okay, I'm going to leverage this, and I'm going to get sponsored. So, the only companies that were there at the time was Sims, Burton, K2, Barfoot, a company called Snowtech, and the last issue of Transworld Snowboarding had this new company, Kemper. And so I put together a little resume. I said, I killed it. I was a national amateur champion. And I got 8th in worlds as a pro. And I sent my resume to every company. And then I started playing them all off on each other. You know? And so I get a call back from this dude named Jamie Salter.
Now you have offers on the table though from Burton, from Sims, from Barfoot, from
everyone's like, yeah, we'll sponsor you. Yeah, sure, we'll give you boards. Here's a T-shirt. And this dude Jamie Salter goes, "What's it going to take, George? I want you." He goes, "You're 8th. You got 8th in the world. I want you." And Jamie and I speak the same language. We were both salesmen, and I was. I ain't gonna lie. I was working it for the best. I was selling out.
Yeah.
I was like, I want to be a pro snowboarder.
Yeah.
I want to travel the world. I want to do this and make money. And I had no idea anything about Kemper except for this picture and the thing. And I knew that I loved Sims boards, but I didn't know anything about Kemper. All I knew is this dude, Jamie, called me up and he was ready to talk business. And he's like, what is it going to take? And I'm like, it's going to take... And I had talked to other people and I had all these ideas. And I'm like, I want match winnings. I want photo incentives. I want a season pass. I want you to pay all my travel expenses. I'm like, this is everything I want. So he's like, Pappas, he goes, okay, we're going to do this. And I made a deal with him. I don't know the specifics, but I do know he gave me $250 a month.
Yep.
He paid my rent for the year.
Wow.
He gave me matched winnings. So everything I won, he would match. He gave me photo incentives with that we explained earlier, and he covered my travel expenses. And then he said, okay, he goes, you know what, George, you better be fucking Wayne Gretzky. He goes, I'm putting all this money into you. You better be fucking Wayne Gretzky. You better take it all. And I'm like, we spoke about fear earlier. I'm like, holy shit, I've oversold myself. I don't know. I'm going to do the best I can, Jamie.
Sure. Yeah.
And he goes, all right. He goes, by the way, pack your shit. You're going to fucking Mount Hood in 2 weeks to ride this summer. And then after Mount Hood, we're sending you to Craig Kelly's camp in Whistler, and you're going to ride there too.
Wow.
So he sent me some boards, Kemper Freestyle and Rampage. And I think I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Was it the black top Kemper or was it the,
no, it was, this is the first year Kemper. And so he sent me, the Kemper Freestyle, which was like the
Lucky Charms one.
The Lucky Charms one, exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
And super soft board, kind of good shape. They were made by Palais.
Yep.
So I was at the Rebel Snowboard Camp. So Rebel Skates is an OG hardcore skate shop in Portland, and they had a skateboard camp that summer. We stayed in an old Boy Scout cabin way down by Rhododendron, and the High Cascades ski camp was a ski camp on the mountain, and we were like relegated to the bottom when we dug our own pipe and threw salt on it. And I skated every day, or I snowboarded every day for like a straight month. And this was, I guess it was 88. I don't know the year.
Sure.
But anyway, Sonny Miller, old surf photographer, you know who Sonny Miller is?
Absolutely.
Came up there one day shooting pictures, and it was me, Mike Estes was the other coach. And there was some, Kurt Heine was a coach.
Sick.
And I don't remember the other coaches. You know what? That was the next year.
Okay.
So the first year, it was me, and Mike Estes was the coach the first year also. But anyway, so we're at coach's camp. We had, and it was seat of the pants, nothing like what it is these days.
Sure.
We go up there and just ride. And this was the year that Mike Jacoby invented the J-Tear air.
Sick.
So back in the day, you could not do inverted airs. You had to touch your hand on the wall to make a legal air.
Yeah.
So every contest, it was all about hand plants. If, guys like Jeff Davis could do his crippler, and he would just like reach out and like barely touch the fucking wall before he dropped just to make it legal.
Yeah.
And Mike Jacoby did the J-Tear air, which was like a 540 hand plant. And I started doing J-Tears, and it was like the coolest fucking thing. And I'm like, I got it dialed in. And I'm like, well, there's got to be some other way to do this. What if I go in fakey and do a fakey J? No one's ever done that yet.
Come
right?
on.
So I drop in, I start doing this fucking fakey J-Tear air, and it turned out to be, so I started pulling it off. And we called it, one of the kids at the camp was a straight edge kid. He goes, we'll call it the BFM, bro. And I'm like, all right, we'll call it the BFM. It's not a J-Tear, it's a BFM. And I go, well, what does it stand for? And we're like, oh, I don't know. And so the people have heard what that trick is named, but it really stands for nothing.
BFM, like the guy he just picked it out of the air.
He just picked the name, and I'm like, okay, that's his BFM. What are we gonna call it? He's like, call it the butt fuck mama, bro. And I'm like, dude, it's whatever. So, and that's what it became.
The BFM.
And the big fine move, call it whatever you want.
Sure.
So it's a fakey J-Tear air, which was really a skateboard move called an Elgarial.
Yeah.
Which is you drop in fakey, and it's like a 360 hand plant, and that's what it is.
That's unfucking believable that you could do those.
I did that.
So you were the Wayne Gretzky of snowboarding. That's a pretty advanced trick for that time, right? Like,
so that was my secret trick. No one had seen it. I did it, just the kids in the camp saw it.
Yeah.
And then I did another trick that Dowd invented, which is they call it the mashed potato.
Yeah.
And the reason I named it that, it's actually Dowd's trick. I got to give Dave credit for it.
Yeah.
It's a front side alley oop, and you grab you grab slob with your front hand, and then you reach behind your back and grab the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And do an alley oop on the backside wall and land.
Yeah.
Dave's trick, but I was the first one. I think Dave was doing it before I was, but I was the first one anyone took a picture of. Sonny Miller came up there, and he took a picture of me doing that trick. And I named it the mashed potato because Pappas is potatoes in Spanish.
Yeah.
And I was all mashed. So I call them mashed potatoes.
Dude, that's so sick.
So that camp ended in July or something, and Jamie flew me up to... I drove up to Vancouver or whatever, and he said, okay, George, we're getting the whole camper teams up there. And I get there, and Jamie shows up with David Kemper, and they got these fucking sun ice costumes, uniform. I don't know what you want to call it, but just like just this full on Dayglow things. I can show you pictures of it.
Oh yeah, I've seen them.
And there's the camper team. It's all these people, and so he brings up, we talked about this before when I was talking to you on the phone.
You got Hetzel there. You got the Bassett brother and sister, right? Tina and Mikey. Who else is on that team?
So Tina, I had met at Worlds, and
Rad.
I was just, I just thought she was just smoking, and I called her up when I got sponsored by Kemper. I called her up and I'm like, Tina, because Jamie was asking me, who else do you know that we could put on the team? We have to build a team, and so I called Tina, and I'm like, you got to get on this team.
What was she riding before? Sims. She had a Sims. I remember seeing.
She had a Sims board. So she was there.
Yeah.
And her little brother, Mikey, who's like 15.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Curtis brothers, Jeff and Joe Curtis.
Oh, wow.
Hetzel.
Yeah.
Noah Selaznik.
Oh, wow.
Shannon Melhughes.
God damn.
And I'm forgetting a bunch of people.
There was more than that.
And so Jamie... Yeah, there was a lot more than that.
That's a lot of people, man.
If I pull up the picture, I can look at it because it's on. I've got it on my phone.
Yeah.
Brett Johnson.
Oh, Brett Johnson,
yeah.
right.
And Anyway, so I'm looking at Hetzel. I'm looking at Noah Selaznik. I'm like, these guys are fucking great snowboarders.
Yeah.
You know, and I felt like I had those feelings that come from the kid that I didn't stack up and whatnot. So Jamie Salter comes in and he goes, "Hey everyone, okay, we're having a team meeting here on the mountain, and this guy over here, this is Pappas. Pappas, he's team captain, and so you guys all got to do what he says." And I'm just like, "Oh no, you gotta be fucking kidding me, man! That's like the kiss of death that he did." And all these guys are just looking at me like, "Really, him? This guy,
team captain?"
Well, and Ketzel's like saluting me, going, "El Capitan," and he just fucking went with it. And so from that point, I was, quote, Kemper team captain. So I was the one that responsible to get the hotel, to make the reservations, to herd the cats or whatever. And I was like,
sure.
I'm not. I didn't sign up for this, but it was. I took it, and
also it's not a sport like that. That's the thing. It got really out of hand. Those guys partied a lot.
Well, we fucking partied that same year. We're up there at Craig Kelly's camp. I've got my couple tricks. I can do a backflip. I can ride, but I was no Noah Selaznik. I was no Andy Hetzel.
Right.
And I knew it. I looked at those guys and I go, these guys are fucking badass. So Jamie takes me aside and I'm like, "Jamie, you have some real talent on this team." And he's like, "Well, Pappas, we're putting all our money in you. You're going to fucking win it all." And I'm like, "Dude, probably these other guys are going to have a lot more success than I."
He doesn't know snowboarding.
Right,
You know snowboarding.
He doesn't know snowboarding.
You know skating. The other thing that I'm just thinking right now is that you're the generation of slalom skater. So that's where your foundation comes from. Hetzel is a vert guy. And Noah's a vert guy who's also one of the most progressive street skaters ever. So they're the current skate guys. Here you are knowing that you're a slalom guy on skateboarding. Which isn't going to hold any water with Hetzel.
No,
because
they're like, what? They didn't even know what that was.
Fuck.
But I was still all about it. I'm fucking proud of it.
Yeah,
and so
and you've got switch fucking J tears, dude. Like that's actually solid. Like that's something solid going into. That.
It's like Roach and Steve Graham. They're like, "We don't do those flippy floppy tricks, Pappas. We got style." And I'm like, so I could recognize that.
Sure.
But so anyway, my point is that I went to Jamie, like, "You better be fucking Wayne Gretzky, Pappas. We're putting all this into you. You still, I don't give a fuck about all these other guys. I'm putting all my money into you. I'll give you $250 a month.
Yeah.
And you're fucking," and it was true.
Yeah.
He was. And just because I had worked the deal, I was sitting there, what am I going to do? Walk away from it?
Right.
So I remember he hired a couple photographers, this chick named Andrea and another photographer, and he was being Jamie Salter, just going big. He goes, "All right, Pappas, here's the deal. I rented a helicopter for the day. We're gonna go and we're gonna jump off the biggest fucking cliff we can find.
Jesus.
Me and you, it's costing me $300 an hour. And so you better fucking go up there. You better find what you want in a hurry so we can do this, because I don't want to spend much money. Fucking shit's expensive." He gets on the helicopter. I've never been on a helicopter before, and we go out. And like everyone else, like Hetzel, and they're like, "Really?" And I'm just like, "Dude, I'm fucking doing this." You know?
Yeah, hell yeah.
So they take me up in this helicopter and we fly out into the whatever those mountains are.
Yeah.
Outside of Whistler, I don't know.
Yep.
And we're flying around. He's like, "Pat," he goes, "What about that one, George?" And I'm like, I have no idea. I'm on. And here's the thing, bro. In a helicopter above tree line, there's no perspective.
Zero.
I don't know how far away that hill is, how big the cornice is, what the drop, what the angle of the landing, what the condition of the snow.
Nothing.
And I'm just this fucking crackhead from Denver that, is just riding the wave. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm like, okay, well, this one, I guess, looks good. He goes, "All right, Pappas, here we go." And we land there. And I look at it, I'm like, holy shit, it's like mandatory 20. It's nothing. Nothing huge.
Yeah.
But to me, looking at it, when I looked at it from the helicopter, it looked like
it looked like a pretty good air. And it was still, a 20-foot drop, straight down drop is nothing to sneeze at. For me at the time, I mean, guys, do it fucking at 8 years old now. But at the time, I'm looking at it, and I was, it could have been more than 20. I don't know.
Yeah.
The picture's still out there somewhere. So he goes, okay, we set it up where I was on and he wanted to have of course, he had to have the helicopter in the background of the picture flying. And so he had to have me. He took the photographer and put her out on a little ledge and where I couldn't see her. And then he went up in the helicopter, and I'm sitting there, sitting down on my board alone, with a snowball in my hand. And, so I told and I think her name was Andrea, the photographer, I'm going to throw the snowball and I'll be 3 seconds behind the snowball.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, because that was the only way that we could time it.
Yeah.
So I'm standing there, and Jamie's up in the helicopter, and there's a helicopter, and I'm sitting there, and the photographer's down there, and I'm like, all right. And I got the snowball in my hand. I'm sitting there, and my fucking heart's going crazy. And I'm like, all right. 3 seconds after I throw the snowball, my whole life can change. I can fucking fly off this thing. I wasn't even sure if the landing was soft or if it was ice. Fucking break both my legs or whatever. And I was fucking all panicked and pumped. So I throw the snowball, 1, 2, 3, and I jump off and fucking do like a slob air or something like that. And just hit nice soft landing. And it was like fucking woohoo! It's just like the most exhilarating thing ever. And
nice.
So I was like, then they came down, picked me up, and the second time I hit it harder and further.
Yeah, because now you know. Now you know.
Yeah, it was.
That's
tight.
fucked up. I didn't know what was going to happen. I'm like, are you going to pearl? Are you going to go over the nose and fucking just tomahawk?
No, I mean, I probably checked, but
Yep.
it was.
You got
cool.
the shot. You got the shot.
He got the shot. He used it on a poster.
Dope.
And Ski Magazine printed it, a tiny picture of it in Ski Magazine.
Come on.
And it was awesome.
That's sick.
Super stoked.
Yeah. So. That's incredible. You hadn't told me that before. That's a fun one.
Yeah. So that was the first summer, and that was what happened with that's how the Kemper team started. And then I was team captain, and we proceeded to fucking wreck every hotel room we stayed at and party our brains out and wreaked havoc everywhere we went. And it was a fucking blast. Like you said, there wasn't pressure. It's like, yeah, sure, we like to win. I felt pressure. I didn't even really feel pressured that much. I was in it for the fun and the travel and the snowboarding and still having a great time with it. I'm going to back up a little bit. After that Kemper team in Whistler, that's actually Blackcomb.
Blackcomb, yeah.
Then I went down to the SIA show in Long Beach. I'm at Long Beach, and Jamie's, full on Jamie Salter. He's there ready to sell Kemper snowboards. He's got the whole thing put together. He's wearing a suit.
Of course.
And he's all business. And I get there, and I'm like his poster boy now.
Yeah.
So he's got me in the booth, talking to people, the reps and stuff like that. And my buddies go like, Pappas, did you see the magazine? I'm like, what? Like, have you seen the magazine? I'm like, no, dude, what? What's up? They're like, dude, you got to see it. So they fucking hand me the Trans World Snowboard magazine, and I'm on the fucking cover.
Yeah.
I was like, I was like, oh my fucking God.
That's epic.
And it was a cover from the World Championships that I had just gotten 8th place in.
Yeah.
And I was on the fucking cover of the magazine.
That's unbelievable.
And I was just like,
awesome.
like, oh my fucking God, I can't believe it. They're like, dude, open up the magazine. Open it up to the back page. I'm like, well, what? Why? And so I open it up to the back page, and there's a fucking FNRad, and it fucking says Pappas in 2-inch fucking hot pink letters.
Yeah.
And it's got that Sonny Miller photo of me doing that mashed potato.
The mashed potato up at hood.
And I was like, I was stunned and dumbfounded, and I was just like overwhelmed. And suddenly I was just like, and everyone at the trade show was just like, Pappas, fuck, and I didn't know what it was like one of the most amazing feelings to have that happen. And yeah, man, I was just super stoked about it.
Dude, that's super amazing. Yeah, talking to Kevin today, there was no buy-in. Jamie couldn't buy a cover. The cover came from good style, epic layout of the shot. You know, like these guys were purists. They weren't about the money at that point, not even close. They were like, the best shit goes on the cover. We don't care if they're in the mag or not. So that says a lot. It says a lot.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. It was fucking. It just
dude, that's so awesome.
Yeah, I was super stoked on it, and so that just like it. In the end, you know, I felt a lot of pressure from it because all of a sudden I was fucking somebody. Yeah, you know, I was like it blew my mind, and so I went to the contest, and I had a lot of people. You know, everyone has haters. I don't know if I had people hating on me or anything, but they're like, dude, you're not. You know, I felt like an imposter in a lot of ways. Like I didn't deserve to have a full page ad in the back of the magazine and be on the cover, right? And be at the contest. I got 8th place at world. You know, I was top 5. You know,
sure.
But I'm still rolling with it.
Yeah, you're top 10 anyways. Whatever.
Just surely because I didn't fall right on my run. But anyway, so that was like September of '88, and so you know, so I was stoked on that. Jamie got us a apartment, or got me an apartment in Silverthorne, and my buddy Dave Dowd was riding for Crazy Banana. Yeah, at the time. Yeah, but Harry Guns is the guy that
I know him.
Was Crazy Banana. I don't really know Harry. Yeah, but they had flown Dave to Europe, and
sick.
Yeah, Dave was like, Dave is a guy who deserves everything that I had. Dave deserved that and more because the guy was such a fucking incredible snowboarder.
I got you.
Time. He, you know, Crazy Banana wasn't coming through for him. Naked Al didn't have the money. Right. Al didn't have the money to take care of Dave and send him because this next year snowboarding was exponentially bigger than it was the previous year. Totally. You know, it was a different scene. Yeah. And so anyway, I said, Dave, I talked to Jamie. I said, you got to put Dave on your team. He's, you know, this guy's fucking unreal. And Jamie's like, okay. And he said, you know, me and Dave, we were roommates. I didn't get Dave, but I helped him negotiate with Jamie just because I spoke Jamie's language. And so, you know, I was like, Jamie, you know, it's worth your while to sponsor this guy. He's a fucking legend. And so Jamie went with it. And so I got Dave on the team, and it was fucking awesome. Yeah. We proceeded to, you know, that was my first trip to Europe was for World Cup. I qualified. I went to, they had the World Cup time trials in Purgatory that year. And I qualified second in the country in the bumps. Wow. Yeah, I said moguls. Yeah. Second in the country in moguls on snowboard. And so I qualified for the World Cup in the moguls. And so that put me, I didn't even qualify in the pipe. So we went to Europe. Jamie paid our trip to Europe. He bought our tickets. He came through for a week. Yeah. And then we called him up asking for money. And since the first race on the World Cup was in Lech and Zurs in Austria, and there was a no snow year, and so the bump contest was ridiculous, and I didn't qualify in the pipe, I think. Yeah. And so Jamie sent us home, and he's like, "I'm not paying for anything else on the trip. You guys are all going to come home." So it's me and Dave and a guy named Rich Varga. I think that's it.
Rich from I met him. Salty Peak. Yeah. From Salt Lake City. Yeah.
So that was my first trip to Europe, and then now I'm caught up. Then we proceeded to wreck every fucking hotel room we want. It was Hetzel going crazy, and Noah, and just the whole Kemper team.
When you're on the road, are you taking a hiatus from drugs at that point, or are you kind of like sneaking off? And
so I quit doing hard drugs during the snowboard season. Yeah, and I would just drink and smoke weed with the rest of the crew, and you know the scene.
Yeah.
And so,
Well,
but
also
hard-
you were older, right? Like you were 27. These guys are in their early 20s.
yeah,
Yeah.
Or still in their teens.
Even their teens.
So at that
Right,
time,
right.
yeah, and I was like, I'm an old man. They're like, Hetzel's calling me old man, and I'm like, 26.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
25 even. In 89, I was 25.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's you're not
but
old,
still-
but
but-
you're older than the median age.
Right.
Right.
And it's a different generation.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
it's the new kids coming up, and for me, it was a lot of fear, and I could tell that my skills, you know, that these guys were exponentially getting better and better and better, and I could see it all blowing up around me. It put a lot of fear in me.
Yeah.
You know? Then the end of the year came. Jamie's like, "Okay, Pappas, you're off the team.
You're not the Gretzky.
You're done. You didn't fucking do it. You're not Wayne Gretzky. You didn't pull it off. Look at what Hetzel did great. No, did great. Look at fucking Dowd." And I'm like, "Jamie, I'm trying to tell you, you know." And he's like, "You're done. You're off the team." I go, "Okay, well, here's all my expenses. Here's my match winnings and my photo incentives." Because I'd had a few pictures here and there. And he's like, "I'm not paying none of that shit."
Oh, fuck.
I'm like, you know, and I've been borrowing money from my parents to travel. And,
Right. Because you've got this contract. You're like, hey, I'll pay you back when I get the money from this
I have
guy,
all this.
my boss.
He's like, fucking sue me, George. Sue me.
Oh.
And, you know, he's pissed. He's like, look, you know how much money you fucking cost me? Look at all these hotel rooms. Look at everything, you know, and he's just laying it out. And he's pissed off, and he fucking kicked me off the team, and he was just done with me. And in no nice way either.
Right. No, that sucks.
So I was like, fuck it, you know, and I went and got high. You know, that's the only coping mechanism that I had. So I went back to went to the city and did hard drugs all summer. And,
Wow.
Well, that's not true. That's not true. I was riding Copper Mountain one day. I was still riding camper, and I saw these old dudes riding these fucking alpine boards and just ripping incredibly. I was like, holy shit. And I fucking chased them down. And it was this dude named Charlie, some German dude named Charlie, and another dude, and they're riding these Mistral boards. And I'm like, wow, can I ride one of those boards? And I think I was on stiff boots that day. And they're like, yeah. And I put on one of these boards, and it was fucking unbelievable. It was the best alpine board I'd ever ridden. It was just head and shoulders above Sims or Camper for sure. Unreal board. And I was like, wow, that board is awesome. And so then Jamie kicked me off the team. Then I coached snowboarding camp again that summer. And at that time, it was Bob Gilly doing the United States Snowboard Training Center. He called it. USSTC.
Yeah.
And so that was me and Kurt Heine and Mike Estes again.
There you go.
Second year.
Yeah.
And so I went up there, and I was like, I called Mistral, and I'm like, look, well, I'm off camper team, and I'm trying, you know, can you guys give me a board? And this dude, Dennis Jensen, who was the national sales manager for Mistral, sent me this fucking 30-pound brick of a Mistral freestyle board and a couple race boards.
Yeah.
And so I rode this thing, and it was the fucking heaviest, stiffest, just POS freestyle board I've ever ridden.
Yeah.
And I rode it all summer, and I learned how to do I learned how to do a palmer air, which I could never do. And I got a picture that was freaking beautiful that they did a 2-page spread in ISM on a Mistral board. I learned how to do an eggplant, and got printed in Thrasher. I had 2 or 3 pictures, a full page in Thrasher.
Damn.
And I think the only reason they printed it is because I was wearing a 11 Rockets t-shirt.
Sick.
Doing a big backside air. And anyway, so I got some publicity riding this board, and I was all about their race boards, but their freestyle board sucked. So I did the camp, USSTC. Then I traveled down to California. I think that the trade show was in San Diego that year. So I show up at the trade show, and Jamie Salter's there, and he has done with George Pappas. As a matter of fact, he made a t-shirt that said, it had a picture of me, the Sonny Miller photo that was in the full page ad. It said, Pappas, no place to land. Like it's a burn, like it's a burn on me. So he made a bunch of them, and they're all wearing them around at this thing. Like fuck you, Pappas, you're not going to get sponsored by anyone. And I'm like, and they gave me one. I'm like, this. I go, thanks.
They gave you one,
I'm
even.
Like, thanks, Jamie.
What the fuck?
In snowboarding and fucking rock and roll, any fucking press is good press.
Yeah,
man. Make me a bad boy. I don't
Yeah,
care. Fuck,
sure.
that's going to pay off in the long run.
Sure.
So-
and what the hell kind of, why bother? Like, that's such a bizarre move to make.
Yeah, he's just like, fuck you, Pappas.
Wow.
And
he's already fucked you over. Like, you didn't do anything to him.
Honestly, I'll say something about Jamie Salter is he came through on everything he said he would come through for with me.
Right.
Even though his style is, it is what Jamie Salter is. Jamie Salter.
Yeah.
One thing about him is he told me everything he did for me, except for in the end when he cut me and said, "Fuck you, sue me."
Yeah.
He came through on everything. He said.
Yeah.
It would be great if Jamie Salter called me up tomorrow and said, "Hey, Pappas, here's your match winnings." The dude's a fucking billionaire now. That would be sweet.
Make it right,
That
Jamie.
would be sweet. Yeah.
Make it right. If you're listening to the show, call me. I'll give you his number.
Right.
Make it right.
There you go. There's my 2 cents with Jamie. But
and give me one of those shirts. I want to know where to land shirt, man.
I want a shirt too because I lost it. So anyway, I went to the trade show. I talked to Dennis Jensen, who he was selling these boards, trying to be Mistral and trying to break into the U.S. market with Alpine boards. Wasn't happening for him. And so I wrote him a letter. I said the guy that I met at Copper Mountain was the owner of Mistral
Oh, no way.
Snowboards. His name is Charlie Mesmer. And so I wrote Charlie a letter and I said, dude, I go, your Alpine boards are the best I've ever ridden. Unbelievable boards, but this is the U.S. and we need everyone here rides freestyle. If you want, I could help you guys design a freestyle board. And I would love to keep riding for you guys, and I'll help you design a board. And I really had no idea what was going to happen with that. I was just putting it out there, and I guess it was probably October that same year, I got a call or a letter or something from Dennis, and he said, "You know what?" He goes, "Yeah, they want to take you up on that board."
Wow.
So as a matter of fact, we're flying you to Munich next week.
Wow. No way.
Here's a check for $5,000.
No. Oh my God.
And so
Lightning strikes twice. Like, what the fuck? That's amazing.
So not only that, but it's going to be a pro model. And I was like, no fucking way. No way. So it happened.
Yeah.
They flew me to Munich, and I designed a board. I gave them my specs on a board, which aren't even anything close to what production was, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
But and I
talk about the board that you designed, because it's ahead of the time.
Yeah. So this is 1989-90 season.
Yeah.
I believe, or maybe it was 80. I don't freaking remember.
Sure. It's in that time zone.
Yeah. I think this board is the 90, and then the purple one was the 91. So,
that makes sense.
So I saw Craig Kelly that year was riding Burton. He had switched over to Burton, but he was riding the Mystery Air because they couldn't tell because of his contractual obligations. No one knew what company it was until his contract ran out. But anyway, I looked at his board, and I took the width of my foot straight across is how wide the board was. My back foot straight across is the width of the board, which is wider than this one.
Yeah.
And I obviously was the man doing the BFM, doing faking. I've been riding backwards all year. So I was like, I'm going to do a 100% symmetrical board that's this wide. And I wanted it to have a lot of side cut for the pipe. So I took the side cut off Craig Kelly's board, and I just measured at the waist how far it was. And I said, and I put that side cut. I had no idea about, parabolic side cuts or anything like
blended
that.
Radius. Yeah. No.
None of that. I had no idea. So they made me, Charlie was a world champion windsurfer, and Mistral, for anyone who doesn't know, is the company in windsurfing. And Charlie got into snowboarding, and he was the snowboarding arm of Mistral, and super talented alpine racer, unreal windsurfer. Same with Dennis Jensen, who's a championship windsurfer. And anyway, Charlie's buddy, this Italian dude named Louis Holtzinger, who I talked to earlier, shaped my board for me. They flew me to Munich, and they had made my board to spec, and it was an unreal freestyle board. And then this one that we're looking at right here is the second prototype that they made. But what they did is, back in those days, there's no internet, and there was, phone calls to Europe were tough to do, and it was real spotty talking, and there's no texting or nothing like that. So just communicate with them. I was under the impression that they were going to do my pro model with the graphics I wanted, was flat black with my signature, the size of my signature on the back of the board, and a little M dot on front, which is the Mistral logo, and flat black. And then it's just a simple board like that.
Would have been for that time, that would have just crushed it. Yeah.
I thought so.
Hell yeah.
And so then they send me this board that looks like a fucking tablecloth, an orange tablecloth with blue all over it. And they notched out the nose and tail. And I was like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, where did the notch idea come from?
So I call Charlie, and I'm like, Charlie, what's up? I thought we were doing a blackboard. You got my signature is a fucking foot long on the tail of it. It's too much, man.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, George, sorry, first run's already done. We printed 1,000 of them or however many, this is how it is. We made a decision. It fits with the line of the board. We have to have consistency. We're not going to do
across the graphics. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause this series has this and then has that.
So, and I'm like, what about the notches? He's like, well, we thought that, our marketing says blah, blah, blah. And then
marketing.
It's a done deal.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck. So that's how it became, how it looks right now. The next year they've reduced it some. They turned it purple, which was a big, huge improvement. Over the orange.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, here I am picking apart my pro snowboard. It's like, come on, man.
Couple of sick shots on your board that come to mind. Russell Winfield shooting with Trevor Graves.
Jimmy
Halapoff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man.
Sick riders. And so anyway, I rode that whole year. They gave me this board with this is a sticker on top of it. To do a photo shoot over in somewhere in Europe, to make their catalog with. Then I came back to the States, and I had boards, and I was, for that season of 1990, I was Team Mistral. There was no one else, hardly anyone else riding the boards.
Yeah.
They paid everything for me.
Did they do the same thing that you had going on with Salter? Did you get a monthly and then your rent paid and all that stuff?
I don't remember everything they gave me, but they took care of me.
Whatever you got, you were happy with.
Whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
I was their man, and I was their only man.
Did they put pressure on you to compete, or were you able to get away from the competing and just shoot photos?
So, no, it was all competing for the year. So I traveled around doing competition, and I had ridden a lot. And I had one of the biggest compliments I ever got. Craig Kelly came, I told you this before we talked. He came up to me in mid-year that year, and he's like, George, your riding has improved so much, and you're doing great. And,
wow.
And like to hear that come from Craig Kelly really pumped me, because, in that moment, I felt like not an imposter. I felt like I'd earned it to have props from a guy like that telling me, because Craig, he didn't lie. The dude was, he was like, yeah, I got to hand it to you, George. You're doing good. And I was like, fuck.
Dude, that's sick.
Awesome. So I rode the whole year on this board. And then at the end of the year, there was body glove contest at A Basin, very last race of the year. Dennis Jensen comes up to me at the last race and he goes, hey, George, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, what's up, Dennis? And he goes, well, Burton has doubled my salary. And as of today, I'm the national sales rep for Burton, whatever the job was.
Yeah.
And you're on your own. And I was like, what?
What do you mean you're on your own?
Because he's my only contact, man.
Oh.
So I was just like dumbfounded. I was pissed. And I had a brand new Mistral board, a brand new race board, prototype for the next year. I was just like, man, I'm going to fucking win this contest just to show that. I look over and I see Dennis like egging on the other team, the Burton team. I'm like, the fucking Burton of all, Burton? You went to, I was like, oh my fucking God. And I was just pissed, you know, and I was like, I'm going to fucking win this. I'm going to win this contest. It was the body glove. And they had this format that was like 4 at a time. And it wasn't a single elimination like they usually do in GS. But anyway, I took 4th place, which was my best ever finish in a race.
Sick.
I wasn't a racer, I was a freestyler. And it was fucking unreal. I was super happy with that. And,
That's dope.
Then, you know, then they still sent me to Europe again. I coached camp in Austria.
Damn.
I coached another camp in Italy.
Wow.
They're still treating me right. And at the same time, in the summertime, I was still doing a lot of drugs, man. I was, you know, but I'd come out of my drug haze and go coach camp for a month. And then, as a matter of fact, I left camp early because I was dating this chick and I got all fucked up about her and left Europe early to come back and keep doing drugs.
Wow.
And then they told me at the end of the year, they said, George, we need a national sales manager. We need someone. Do you want the job?
Damn.
And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? And this is now Mistral was set to be one of the biggest players.
Yeah.
Dennis Jensen had set the company up really well. They pumped me. They got good publicity from me. They had a phenomenal line of boards, quality, all the right ingredients. And so I'm like, hell yeah, I'll take it. And they made me the national sales manager. They made me the team manager. So I started getting all kinds of letters from kids wanting to be sponsored by Mistral. They're giving me like all the accounts I'm supposed to go and I fucking locked up.
Oh no.
I could not put the pipe down and fucking do this. And I traded the biggest opportunity of my life up to that point. I mean, the national sales manager for Mistral, and I mean, it was my dream job. I mean, it was other than pro snowboarder, it was my step out of it.
Yeah,
and into and I fucking traded it all for a fucking crack pipe.
Wow.
And not only that, but I single-handedly was more than likely the demise of Mistral snowboards in the United States.
Right.
Because they had no one to sell their boards, and it was too late. By the time it was clearly apparent that I was not doing it, it was too late. And that year was gone.
Right.
And I had three models that year.
Oh, wow.
A 57, a 50, and a 40.
And a 40, yeah.
And I choked. And like, you know, Kevin came to me one day and said, he's like, dude, Kevin Delaney, he took me aside. He's like, dude, people are fucking laughing at you, George. He said those drugs are like your girlfriend and you devote every minute to her and nobody likes her. Everyone fucking hates her and people are fucking laughing at you. And all that did was, you know, I was just like, that's do it. And
not very supportive.
No, well, Kevin is one of the most positive people I know. And he was one of the only friends. He was one, you know, it was supportive of me because he's the only person that took me aside and cared enough to say, George, look, you're fucking choking, bro.
Yeah.
You're fucking choking.
Yeah.
No one else was telling that. Everyone else was just like, oh yeah, fucking Pappas deserves that or whatever. And, you know, he was a bro enough to come and tell me that, you know, dude, you're fucking blowing it. You're fucking blowing it.
Yeah.
And I did. And, you know, and that was in 91. Yeah. 91, 92 season. And, by that next summer, I was putting a needle in my arm.
Wow.
And the first time I put a needle in my arm, I checked myself into rehab. And I got out of rehab, and it lasted like 2 weeks. But, you know, while I was in rehab, I realized that, you know, that this whole time I've been snowboarding that all the fear and the imposter syndrome that I had and the feeling that I didn't deserve it was I brought it back to the first time I felt that. And when that happened was when that day that I ditched my brother and went to Elitch's and he got in that car accident. I blamed myself and my brother. And because of that, I felt like I didn't deserve the success. I felt like I felt like he did. And, I didn't know it at the time, but I fucking sabotaged myself because it wasn't me that was supposed to have the success. It wasn't me that was supposed to be going to all these places and having all this great stuff happen for me. At least that's how I felt. That was the lie that I was telling myself then.
Right.
And, it took me to go through rehab when I was 30 years old in 92 to start putting that shit together, and that's when I did. That's when I really realized that that's what I was doing with my snowboard career. And at that time, I still I didn't believe that I was any good. I didn't believe that I deserved anything, that it was all Chris, that deserved everything. And it took me going through life a lot more to really start putting more things together, which didn't happen until I put myself in prison. And finally quit doing drugs and got some recovery and some time away from them enough to get a little bit of emotional health and a little perspective on my whole life.
Seeing you here talking about it, the depth of the emotion that you felt from that day without support, right? Like internalizing and burying deep down while you're having this success with skateboarding. That's some child star stuff, right? Like $500 and getting flown to South America and signing autographs and shit. Like you didn't have any support through that guilt and that pain that you felt through that time. And
the shame, that toxic shame of telling myself that I'm a bad person.
Right.
That my core doesn't deserve this and is a bad person because of what I've done.
Right.
And blaming myself for it, and that's the difference between shame and guilt, is that shame says I'm a bad person.
Yeah.
Guilt says I've done something bad. And add that to being a 30-year-old with the emotional intelligence of a 12-year-old, because that's where I was stuck. It was that when first time I got stoned, that's where my emotional maturity ended.
Right.
So, yeah, it took me, I still had a lot of guilt and shame because now I've got to deal with all the other things, all the havoc that I've wreaked. I didn't really see it at the time, what I did with Mistral or all the victims that I created.
Right.
I created victims that I'll never even know of. All these kids that were trusting me, they're like, Pappas, they see my picture and have this inflated idea of whatever, because it's all an illusion.
You're right.
When you're looking
right.
at the pictures or the things, you see this pro at whatever, it's an illusion. You don't know the real person.
Yeah.
And Craig Kelly told me that. One of the first people that said, this is all just an illusion, George.
Wow.
Shit.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a heavy topic, but like my friend Chris was the one who bought your pro model, and I'm pretty sure we called it the Jerry Pappas Jr. because we couldn't read the, you know what I mean? Like I don't know where that came from, but it's like, you were larger than life to us. I was never going to meet you. You know what I mean? Like it was like, this is a guy from the magazine. Look at this board that he's designed. It rides really well. So we didn't know anything about you. Nothing. You know what I mean? So our expectations, or I can only speak for myself. My expectations were you design a good board and you had already done that. So you like transaction completed, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so then we would watch the magazines, and if you would have kept going in there and we probably would have followed you to the next thing, right? I was surprised when I Googled your name. No, it came through my Facebook feed or something because the snowboard industry is fairly small. And when you went to jail the second time, it kind of made the feed, you know what I mean? Yeah. But so when I called you, the first conversation we had, I wasn't sure if I was talking to you in jail because I'd read that you had a sentence for 13 years. Right. And that was your second time going to jail, right? The first time was check fraud or something.
Yeah. First time was in 2007 for check fraud.
Yeah. Did anything happen during that put you on a different path, or was that just no?
After I went through rehab the first time, then I met a girl. We had a kid. I started a company. I went legit. And but I still had to have it. You know, I still had I still had I still had no recovery. You know, I still blame myself for my brother. I still now I had this ruined snowboard career, and I'd be in my mind, and possibly in real life, I was the pariah of the snowboard industry because of what I'd done with, you know, by bailing out on the straw, and so I was just did drugs because it was my only coping skill that I had, and you know, I started when I had a kid. I started a family and I started doing hardwood floors, which is, you know, I spent my whole life finding the steepest hill and the gnarliest, most insane terrain to make. And then I traded that for having a family and doing wood floors where I'm trying to make it as flat and smooth as possible. So it's kind of like the total antithesis of snowboarding. I'm just fucking slaving away and crawling around on my hands and knees. And it was kind of like an ascetic type, you know, paying my dues and my karma in reverse is how I looked at it. You know, it's like self-immolation, you know, like I deserve to be here doing this fucking slave work. But, you know, at the same time, I had, come out of the drug world and I was legit. You know, people knew me at the supermarket again and or not again, but, instead of being like I had been being a drug addict and you know, I got into dealing and stuff like that where I'm changing my cell number all the time. No one knows where I live and I'm hiding out. And, you know, I traded that because that's what I did from 92 till about 96 is I just started dealing drugs and I got heavy into the scene and, you know, I was just totally underground. And then when I started a family, like I said, I became legit. And it felt good to see someone at City Market and they're like, "Hey George, you did a great job on our floor. Here's our neighbor's phone number."
Rad.
And that was awesome, you know, and my wife was in the business and she was doing the books and I went, you know, I became a really good business in Durango, where I had moved to. And then I started getting high again and it all fell apart. And I got to the point where my wife left me, she got custody of the kid and all the incentive I had was gone. And I was just getting high and bouncing checks to support my own habit. And I couldn't support my habit and take care of shit. So I ended up going to prison for 2 years. I got a 3-year sentence. Then I got a 3-year community corrections halfway house sentence. And that didn't last. So I went to prison and I got out in 2007. And that's when I started skateboarding again.
Rad.
And I actually had started before that in like 2002. I met, I was on a job site and I heard someone say, "Hey, is Randy Smith here?" And I'm like, I go, "Randy Smith, is that Randy Smith, the skateboarder?" And I hear from across the house, "Yeah." And it turns out that Randy Smith was a skater from Dillon way back in the day, in the ARA days. And he was the best skater out of Colorado. That was one of the pros that was competitive with all the other guys. And through the internet starting to happen in the early 2000s, slalom skateboarding was making a comeback. And they had the geometry of the boards had gone light years. The formulas of the wheels were super grippy and the whole sport had changed, become way faster. And so I started skateboarding again with Randy. And probably I'm looking at one of the best decisions of my life was there was the world championships of slalom skateboarding in 2002 or something. And I had told all my jobs, I was still holding it together with my work. This is before I got busted, but that I'm going to go to this race at the end of the year. And at the end of the summer, it came down to the weekend I was going to go. I had my best client said, "George, we need you to stay and finish this floor." And I was like, "I told you guys months ago I'm leaving." And they're like, "Look, if you don't do this floor, we're done with you." And so I went anyways. I went and I raced, you know, I went to the race and didn't even qualify. It wasn't even top 64.
Oh, wow.
Because I didn't have the right equipment. I just wasn't good enough. These guys were really good. But I went to the race and I skated all weekend. I started poaching runs. And I got on some good boards and I was like, I can fucking do this. And I came back and I lost my biggest client. I spun out. I owned 2 houses in Durango. I lost my houses. I lost my business. My marriage fell apart. I got divorced, traded it all for drugs. And the worse it got, the more drugs I did, the more I wanted to numb myself. And that's how I ended up getting into prison.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I got out of prison, Chris, again, had been sending me Concrete Wave magazines.
Right.
And I did a couple races before I went down. I was good. I became homeless in Durango. I literally went from running the biggest wood flooring company in Durango to living down by the river, fighting the natives for a fucking camping spot.
Oof.
Like I did that, and
yeah.
I had a 6-year-old son who knows if he ever saw me like fucking on the side of the road, fucking passed out by the railroad tracks or anything like that.
Right.
But that's what I did with my life.
That's heavy.
Then I went to prison and I got out and I started skating again in 2007. 2008, I got third place at the World Championships in Sweden.
Damn.
I got crowdfunded by the slalom skateboard community. They sent me to Sweden.
Oh, man.
I traveled Europe for a month. Got third at Worlds. 2009, I won the whole thing. I won the overall World Championships of slalom skateboarding at age 43.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I was pretty stoked. I got to say that's the only time in my life where I 100% gave it my all and lived up to my whole potential because I was so committed to it and I was doing something that I loved so much that and I did it, it was unbelievable.
That's big. Yeah, like where you actually gave yourself the win. Like I earned this. Right.
And I didn't have, it wasn't like in snowboarding where I was just like, in snowboarding, I was just, I was so fucked up about everything. And I was, I knew that I knew I could never be the best. It was clearly obvious that there is no fucking way. You guys are unbelievable. But in slalom, I've been doing this since I was fucking 12.
Yeah.
And I'd seen the best and it was a perfect storm for me. I knew that not only could I be the best, but I knew I was the best.
That's it.
At the time. And there was no question in my mind that I wasn't going to win. And I did it. And I'm proud of that.
That's super sick. Yeah.
So after that, after I won, I had big plans to do the same thing with downhill skateboarding. I was going to win Mary Hill, which is the biggest race in the country. And I started getting high again. I had a girlfriend that, was, she was an addict also. And we started getting high together and I'm not going to put any blame on her for anything. I'm responsible for every decision I make. And I pulled her down with me in a lot of ways, but we got heavy into doing drugs and wound up. We went on a run and got clean in January of 2015. Within 6 months, I had my whole business back doing wood floors. I was making $1,000 a week. We had paid our rent in Boulder at a house. We had our family, had everything together. And then we started getting high again. Within 3 months, we were homeless. And I blamed her. She blamed me. And I wound up taking my car and drove it into traffic pole down the street at 60 miles an hour. I undid her seatbelt about a mile before. I put my hand over it, and then about 4 blocks before I crashed the car, I took my hand off. She put her seatbelt back on, and I crashed into a traffic pole at about 60 miles an hour and woke up in the hospital with attempted murder charges. That's what put me in prison. I ended up with a 13-year sentence for it. She walked away from the accident unhurt. That's the only saving grace of the whole thing, I got a 13-year sentence out of it, and I got out of prison 7 months ago.
To get out after 5 years, something had to happen in there.
My only goal originally was to get out of prison as fast as I possibly could.
Mm-hmm.
And, I even bonded out, and I still got high. I hooked back up with her.
Wow.
No one knows this.
Wow.
But I hooked back up with her when I was out on bond.
Mm-hmm.
So now my family knows after they listen to this. And then we got high again. And my family pulled my bond and sent me back to jail. So I went back to prison. I went into prison on June 15th, 2016. And that's the last day that I was high. It's the last day I used tobacco. It's the last day that I put any drugs in my body except for caffeine.
Mm-hmm. Congrats on that, man.
Hey, thanks. My whole goal, like I said, was just to get out of prison as fast as I could. And I found some dudes that have been through the system, and they said, do this, take every class you can, get into every program you can. My first thing was to try to get a smaller sentence because I was facing 38 years. So I got into this JET program. It's like a therapeutic community program here at Boulder County Jail. And it's run by the Naropa, which is the Buddhist university here in town. It was run by Naropa graduates. And so it was a mindfulness-based rehab. And we did a lot of meditation, CBT classes, victim impact, anger management classes. And, I had a good friend that was like, he was trying to get a minimal sentence, and like he and I had a competition to who could get the most classes, do the most extra credit, read the most books, and do the most. I wanted to do the most.
Yeah.
And somehow in that process, I became motivated to change. I went, they say there's stages of change, and I went from like contemplating, like before I was just trying to get out, and then I'm like, well, God, this feels good. And I started to connect the dots about stuff. I started to look at my snowboard career and realize that, hey, I did that because I didn't want to feel, and I had all these lies that I was telling myself, and it all started becoming clear to me. And I had some really great mentors and some really great therapists at Boulder County Jail. Then I went to prison, and that all ended. And, the Colorado prison system at the time, I went to a private prison, which was all about the money. But I was still had people that told me that go to prison and do everything you can to get to Arrowhead, to get into therapeutic community program there, and then go to Pier 1, which is a outside rehab program. That's your ticket to get out of prison the fastest way. And that was my whole idea. But in the process of doing that, I kept doing the things, kept taking the actions to look at my life and to really start feeling my feelings and reading books. And at some point, it wasn't me that did it. And I'm not going to get all spiritual and higher power stuff on you, but the switch went off, and then I started wanting to change. I realized how fucking miserable I was before, and I started having a little bit more peace in my life. I could be with myself, by myself, and not be miserable, and not want something outside to be happier. And when I finally did make it to Arrowhead and I did this TC program, it was just the most phenomenal, believe it or not, the most phenomenal 5 years of my life.
Wow. Was
my prison experience. I just, I met some of the best people, and I found recovery, and I was helped out by other people that I saw people that had what I wanted, guys that had been locked up for, one buddy of mine was locked up since he was 19 for a double murder. And the dude is one of the most together, emotionally intelligent people I've ever met in my life. And these people have been through it. It's like, I looked at them, I'm like, I want what they got. This therapeutic community that I was in was a peer-run community. And it was all about, the term is being your brother's keeper. It was all about being your brother's keeper and helping other people through it. And I did I did 13 months of the program. I made it through. And then I became a mentor, and I mentored people for another year.
Yeah.
And, I got in there, and that's where I figured out, that's where I looked at it, and I figured out, man, I have, when I was 13 years old, when I was 12 years old, and I told myself this lie that I was responsible for crippling my brother, that I also told myself a lie that I don't deserve success, and that I'm an imposter, and that I'm not good enough. And, I realized growing up, the youngest of 11 kids, that from the time I was a little kid, that I competed for attention, and I got this, I told myself this lie that I'm unlovable.
Oh, man.
And these are terms, everyone, these are universal things that we all tell ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
People have, it changes a little bit. Circumstances are different in everyone's lives. And a lot of people come out with ideas. I'm unlovable. I'm broken. I don't deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And so these lies I've been telling myself my whole life. And I learned some skills on how to have awareness, number one, of my thoughts and my self-talk, to really to listen to my self-talk, and to be in touch with my feelings, and to see how my thoughts and my feelings together will lead me to certain behaviors. And I've recognized how to stop my, I'm not perfect. I'm not even very good at it. I don't think. Better than I was yesterday. But I can recognize my self-talk in real time, and I can see these lies that I'm telling myself. And I have some skills on how to dispute this negative self-talk and saying that everything's horrible, terrible, or,
right.
Or I'm a piece of shit. And you know what? I'm not. I'm a human being. I'm going to make mistakes.
Right.
I not being ashamed of all of my, saying I'm a piece of shit. Well, no, I've done some fucking terrible things. I've done some things that are bad, but you know what? I can't change that. All I can do is change my behavior in the future. Maybe I can influence someone else to change. And it's become clear to me that that's how it works. Not only did I have these guys in prison that helped me to change, and I am eternally grateful to those guys for doing that, but I've had people come up to me as they were on their way out of prison and say, Pappas, thank you. Because I help people, I've helped the light go off with other people too. And that's phenomenal. So now that I'm out of prison, it's kind of, I'm involved in 12-step programs, and I'm involved in giving back and service, and, trying to stay humble and grateful.
And you got this house, man, from these circumstances, from this.
I'm just doing the thing.
Yeah.
I got out 7.5 months ago.
Yep.
And, in that time, I've put my wood floor company back together. I've stayed clean the whole time.
Good for you, man.
Keep taking the actions and doing the thing. Not all the time, man. I have had days in the past couple of weeks where I couldn't even get out of bed. I just think that, in prison, a lot of times, there's nothing expected of me. And I spent a lot of times where I just would sleep for fucking days and days on end, and just, get in this funk and this depression, and just let it happen. And especially, a lot of people could relate because of COVID. We all got isolated, and we all spent a lot of time by ourselves. And I don't know everyone's story. I was fortunate enough to go back to prison. They let me out in February of 2020. I got out, and I got to that program, Pier 1, that I was talking about before.
Yeah.
And I was there for 2 days. I was out after 4 years in prison. I got out. I did a perfect program. and I got to Pier 1, which is like an 18-month rehab, which is, I was all about it. It was more of the TC. It was more of the, that I love. I love the change and I love the growth that I was doing. And after 2 days, they pulled me aside and they said, Pappas, we hate to tell you, but your victim is at the sister facility next door and there's conflict of interest. So you're going back to prison.
Oh, wow. Holy shit.
So 5 minutes later, I'm fucking shackled, sitting in the back of the dog kennel, on my way to Denver City Jail.
God damn.
And I got there, and the next day, COVID hit. And so I watched it on, like, it was so surreal to see it. Like, when they regressed me, all I could do was laugh. And I was like, you know what? I can choose my actions, but I can't choose the consequence. And this is a consequence of my action 4 years ago.
Yep.
And so I have to take this. And, I've already done this for 4 years. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to make the best of this. And so I was good with it. I didn't have resentments towards the system or towards her.
Good for you.
Yeah.
That's a tough moment.
Yeah. I had to laugh. So I went to Denver County and I sat in Denver County watching this whole fucking pandemic unfold over the TV. 1 hour a day when they let me out of my cell. And the most amazing thing happened when I was in Denver County is I unblocked. I started writing about 3 years ago, and I want to write my life story, which is pretty eventful.
Yeah, man.
I like it,
Sick, dude. I love it.
So I unblocked in prison, and I was up. I write all night, and I got some phenomenal writing done. And I was in Denver County for like 2 months, and it was one of the best feelings to unblock and to really start writing and to create and to really get a lot of these feelings and a lot of these stories out of my head about my childhood and different stuff and process it as I was writing and it was fucking amazing. So about March 22nd of 2020, they pulled me out and they brought me back to prison. They shackled me up and they brought me to Buena Vista, which is gladiator school. If anyone knows the Colorado prison system, Beauty and Lyman and Sterling are like where the shit goes down. And I came from Camp Cupcake at Arrowhead Minimum Security Correctional Facility, in the TC program, behind the walls at Beauty, and that's where they quarantined me. And then the next day after they quarantined me at Beauty, they bring this fucking white dude in and stick him in my cell. And I'm like, what happened to quarantine? He's like, well, I'm quarantining too. And they stuck us both in there. And this guy was hacking and coughing on me for a week. But his temperature never got over 101 when they tested us, and their threshold was 101 in order to be tested for COVID. So they tested me because my temperature went over 101, and I came back positive for COVID.
Oh, fuck.
It was the first case of COVID in the Colorado prison system. So I became inmate 0. So there's my fucking dubious claim of honor.
Wow.
And it was crazy.
Yeah.
And this is in the time where everyone was still terrified of it. It wasn't.
Yeah.
People had got their own corners. The whole world was unified. This is fucking a pandemic.
This is the big pandemic.
The world is going to end.
I remember it was fucking freaky, dude.
I had motherfucking Serenos and Crips coming to my cell because everyone knew I was the one. It was on the titler on the DOC news page. We have a positive case of COVID at Buena Vista, and these guys were watching the nursing staff come to my cell in the body condoms and sticking them. And they knew it was me.
Yeah.
And these guys are coming to my cell going, hey, motherfucker, you're not coming out of that cell. Where, don't even breathe out that cell. You're not coming out there. We don't even want to see you in the shower.
Wow.
And I was fucking scared. I've been in prison for 5 years, and that was the scariest that I've been ever in prison, because these guys were so scared of the virus. They sent me and quarantined me in the hole for another few weeks, and then they moved me to a different facility.
So solitary.
Yeah.
Fuck me.
It's not, it's no big deal. it was fucking awesome.
You could sit with yourself.
I could sit, and I could write, and I was good. I'm good. You know?
Wow.
And it was phenomenal. It was another year of, you know, of being good. And that few months at Buny is an experience that I have the unique opportunity to have gone through that experience.
Mm-hmm.
Most people never will have that opportunity. Yeah. Like I said, I was unblocked, and I did a lot of great writing in there too. And there's something to be said for going through that. It was, you know, it's changed me in a good way forever. So I'm pretty stoked on it.
I think we talked about this a little bit, and I did really connect with you over the idea of childhood trauma and a spontaneous experience, that there's some young version of you running the show that's scared and doesn't have all the information, and you're making these knee-jerk decisions about your life from the point of view of, like, for me, it was like a 3-year-old kid, you know? So there were some points in my life where
Right.
I got a 3-year-old mental block that is equivalent to a 3-year-old child making the decision for this 48-year-old man. I don't know. It took some pretty radical therapy for me to get to that point, but I had a spontaneous moment of remembering what it was like to be a 3-year-old kid.
Cool. That's cool.
And I was able to see it from an outside perspective and realize that 3-year-old kid didn't do anything wrong. And a lot of what you're talking about is in there.
Yeah.
That I'm lovable. That it wasn't because my mom didn't love me that she was treating me the way she did. It was actually because she did. Right. And that I'd made that mistake, and I'd brought it all the way to the present moment. And I had a choice now that I'd seen it. And it hasn't changed back. The love that I have for both my parents, but especially my mom, it's like all of a sudden I got that love from her too. Like, right. I realized it was there that whole time, and I'd just been pretending like it wasn't happening.
Yeah, I love that, dude. I love that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm hearing you say also is that it's not even really cliches. It's the inner child, and the inner child work that we have to do is I've still got this 12-year-old kid inside me that's telling me these lies that, you know, like I was saying earlier, that I don't deserve this, and that I'm a terrible person for what I've done.
Right.
And for me to go back and talk to that kid and say, you know what, bro, you know, that's not how it is.
Mm-hmm.
I love you, and it's not your fault.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and to have like a conversation.
Yeah.
With it.
Thank you for carrying that heavy load.
Right.
Like, that's a lot for a 12-year-old.
Right.
That's heavy.
Yeah.
That's heavy. And thank you you've kept me safe this whole time. You've been working on it, doing your best. And right. I love you, and I appreciate you for that. But I'm a 48-year-old man now. I can take it from here.
Right.
You just go be a kid. Be 12 years old. Yeah.
And for whatever reason, the universe works perfectly, and the perfect way for me to learn it was to go to prison.
Mm-hmm.
And to go through that. And that's what it took for me to learn. And that's what it took for me to begin to help other people, and to begin to change, and to begin to recover, you know?
Rad.
It's a wild ride, bro. It's a wild ride, you know? Yeah.
You knocked this out of the park, man. This is even way better than the first time we talked about this. You blew my mind that time. You just blew my mind 10 times more. People are going to love this, dude. You deserve absolutely everything. If you ever have those dark days, you got my number, man. I'm on that list. Give me a call. I'll remind you of all these fucking amazing things you've done in your life. When I hear about the skateboarding, when I hear about the snowboarding, I mean, I saw that slalom run that you took in, when would that have been? 2019 or 2020 or something? What's the one that's like a world record run?
That was 2007.
That was 2007.
Yeah.
I forget what is the...
It's just a slalom run. I don't even want to pump myself on that, so I'm not going to. But
Okay.
what I will say,
Yeah.
what I will say is that 2028 Summer Olympics are in LA. And
wow.
mark my words, slalom and downhill skateboard racing in some form are going to be a part of that.
Dope.
And the U.S., as always, this sport and snowboarding started here in the U.S.
Right here. Yeah.
Started here. Boulder, Colorado is an epicenter for growing some of the best snowboarders and the best skaters ever.
Dope.
As is Cali. The bottom line is that skateboard racing will be in the Olympics, and I'm going to do everything in my power to be a part of that and to help it happen. I have no idea what skateboard racing is going to look like or what the disciplines will be, but I guarantee that I'm going to fit into it somehow, and that I'm just going to use my stoke and my energy to put towards that. Because, like I said, when I did the World Championships, that I gave it everything that I had. And, something that I've learned is, like I was talking about at the beginning of the interview, my higher power, the universe, the power of attraction or whatever, it gives us all whatever we focus on. I can focus on drugs and I can focus on resentment, and I'm going to get resentment and I'm going to get negative things and I'm going to create my own fucking hell if that's what I focus on. Mm-hmm. And if I focus on gratuity and I focus on love and I focus on good times and friends and service and all these principles of family, of charity and love, then that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to manifest in my life, and that's what's going to manifest in the world. And I firmly believe that.
Hell yeah.
So
fuck yeah.
That's what I'm about, bro.
Dude, thanks for doing the show. George, you're the best.
Right on, bro.
That's sick.
Right on.
That's so sick.
Start of a good friendship, huh?
Hell yeah.
Right.
Hell yeah. Thanks, man.
Right on. I told my story last night, this morning, till 4 a.m. I let out a lot, not close to it all, but a lot. Emotionally draining and purifying. Autophagy, morning pages. Funny, that cleansing of the soul that is this writing, this outlet of telling and sharing and exposing to the light. That vampire, that soul-sucking vampire dies in the light of exposure and transforms to light itself, love and light. I didn't talk much about her. I'm not going to say doesn't matter, because of course she matters. And I'm not exposing her. The circumstance matters. There is the story in there, what happened, who owns what in the specifics. And at the same time, that doesn't matter. Circumstances are neutral. And I chose to stick around. I chose to engage. I got a payoff for it. Always a payoff. Emotional intelligence 101. Always a payoff. And I told the story, but I didn't own my emotions. I didn't own. How about I will own my emotions of powerlessness and despair. And I will talk about after the crash, time traveling, karma of 40 years, half the pain, only half of what Chris was. Half of that moment, one leg crumpled, not two. And I wake up in the pain of life. This moment, I can feel maybe half of that same experience that Chris went through, waking up trapped in that car and the pain and the forever moment of pure now that I popped into after traveling through the murky opaqueness of nothingness. I will talk about that and the hospital and the trip to jail and the bitch. No, not her, me. The crying little bitch-ass little girl crying in that jail cell. Me, the despair, the experience of that. I need to clean that all up with Eric and connect the dots of everyday drugs to not feeling. And I've got to take responsibility. I deserve to die a horrible death in prison for what I've done in my life. I need to own that. But by grace, I'm here and out of prison and telling this story. And it is perfect. I need to express that and to own my shit. And I stop and I stand up. I indulge in the illusion of thought and storylines dissolve in ether. But now I sit and the chain of ink comes out of my pen, the spider's web in reverse. The cobwebs come out of my brain in this chain, and a little clarity, a little space is made, and a little process and peace, or dare I say serenity, takes the place of those cobwebs that now form a time-traveling port of entry and land on this page so solidly and forever in this moment, here to be read, to time travel into others' eternal illusion of thought, and maybe, just maybe, have a positive effect, always an effect, on this play, this illusion we all call life.
It's beautiful, man.
Thanks. That was my journaling the next morning after we did the interview. You know, I was thinking about how I just glossed over the wreck. It was a hellish week before I crashed that car. And I could have walked away at any time. I could have left. And I'm 100% responsible. Putting my self-worth in the hands of someone else. And when that became blatantly obvious, that feeling of ultimate powerlessness and despair, I couldn't handle it. And, you know, a couple other things happened. Maybe read the book. There's a lot to be said. You know, in the past 5 years, I've talked to a lot of people, and it's fucking sad, but it's true. I did do that. I did that. And something changes in a person, and something changed in me after trying to do that.
Yeah, you would have had to do a lot of work to come to the point where you could even talk about it, I imagine.
Just talking about it is like that vampire I said, bringing it into light. It's an amazing thing. And, you know, going to prison and going through this experience has been the most amazing fucking thing in my life. You know, it's life is perfect, and karma gives me exactly what I need to work through my past and my shame and my guilt and forgive myself and be nice to myself. And it's, you know, for some people it takes less. For me, it takes what it takes.
Yeah.
Partially what I've learned is I told myself all these lies, myself that I didn't deserve anything. And I don't know how to put it in words. Should I put him outside?
I could do it. All right, come on, Rocky. We're going outside. You know?
I really feel like I was sharing eternity, looking back on it now with my brother, because I woke up in 1 second I was aiming at that pole and I gunned it as hard as I could. And the next second I was floating through this opaque turquoise something, and then popped out into the most intense light and the most intense pain and every feeling off the chart. And in that moment, it was so surreal. I think I was sharing that with what Chris went through when he was in that car back when he was 13 years old. But, you know, maybe it took me to gain that empathy to really, really put together some kind of idea of, number one, the damage I've done in my life, the victims I've created, and to give me a view of what it's like on the other side. But, you know, a big part of me thinks, what's the person think that listens to this? And like, with this guy?
Yeah.
This guy.
But
I do. And I'm here for a higher purpose. And, you know, hopefully maybe someone can gain something out of my life and my experience that's going to change the world. If I can share my experience, strength, and hope and help others and change the world, that's what it's all about.
That was the kind of unexpected turn that through developing yourself, you could actually offer something really tangible and really real to people, to the listeners of this show, to everybody, anyone that's going to read your book. You have the real lived experience of somebody that's taken it to the edge. And there's so many people out there that their lives are on some scale of that experience where they're unhappy with themselves. They don't think they deserve things, that they're not good enough. I mean, the fact that you've pulled through it with such a clarity of purpose, it's inspiring,
man.
Bro.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. You know, one thing I would like to say is that, you know, all the experiences of my life, this trauma and the things I've done and things that have happened to me, I did blame myself for, and I didn't want to feel those feelings. That's why I was using the drugs, and I couldn't see it because I was so close to it. And now that I can zoom out and look at it from 10,000 feet, I understand. And, you know, I was lying to myself the whole time. Now I can see, and now I have some skills, like I was saying, to feel my feelings and a support system.
Do you feel like you've got the support system you need?
I do, man. This life is all about action. You know, if I keep seeking it out and doing the right things, then everything's going to come to me. It's the power of attraction. It's like that rap I did when I got out of prison.
Yeah.
That's like my mantra.
Yeah.
I say that to myself in my head. I was at Trinidad, and it was my 4th year anniversary of getting my bond pulled. And it was on that day I went to breakfast, and I came back from breakfast, and I sat down at my desk in my cell, and it just flowed out in about a half hour.
Wow.
And, you know, I tweaked it and fine-tuned it a little bit. But,
yeah.
But it's how I feel, and it kind of is pretty succinct on...
Let's hear it, man.
So it's now 6 years, but
Yeah.
I'm going to say it like it happened that day because the play on words with the 4. So 4 years ago, I was locked up physically. 4 years ago, I didn't know my identity. 4 years ago, I was locked up mentally, didn't know who I was meant to be. Incredibly, I was locked up, and I began to be this new entity. Had to be, for my psychology was logically nowhere. Didn't care about anyone out there, just my own hair to save. Wasn't brave, a coward. No power inside, outside, all sour, dark tower. Now it is different. 4 years today, mind play, and I say it, my mind is better. I can think, even rhyme, unfettered. I watch my thoughts, feelings, and behavior in real time, and it's so clear. I catch my thoughts and switch, pull my mind out of the ditch, and I'm rich. I get better and better. I follow the letter with awareness, and I speak less stress, ego less in my life. No longer as big a mess as 4 years ago, when tears did flow until I let go of my big ego. Now life, I embrace it, and I base it on love. I can't be above compassion. My thoughts, feelings, and actions are dictated not by fear and reactions, but love. My responses are stronger. The gap between circumstance and action gets longer and longer. Thoughts, feelings, behavior. I'm a responder. Time traveling, forever commanding the ever-expanding landing strip called now. So don't trip. I get better and let it rip, because ego has jumped ship, and I let go, and presto, the right action is so in the flow, and I just let it be so, because I know I ain't in control. Time slow-mo, ipso facto, no reaction, I ain't bitter. So I grow and grow, new neurotransmitters, superhighways continue to grow and flow and grow. 4 years ago, I was so low, can't grasp how low. I was living in the back of my Volvo, basing my self-worth on this outside shit show. Today I look back and my crack-a-lack of life whack. I was such a knack. Couldn't seem to stack those greenbacks, always getting jacked up at every trap shack off Colfax. Now my life is snapped back, I'm on track to keep my pack with no act, all facts I'm spitting out about how humility and gratuity are paramount. My mind's full of love's pull, and I can't bull shit you because I ain't fit to do this without you, and I know love's about to explode through. 4 years and 4 years for the breakthrough, to know that love permeates throughout all life. And I'm about to get out to life and find out about strife. And I've got to pull out my toolbox rife with ways to deal with this adversity life's about to hand me like candy to a baby. All the temptation of the big city's been waiting for me for 4 years. And oh yeah, I got fears about the day I get that gate behind me. I'm a ball of vulnerability, and that won't be no time to be fronting the sea. Because even though it's up to me, ultimately, I got to pull out that toolbox and see that it's love and community supporting me. I can't do this shit alone. Can't you see that I need my support system, coping skills, and this new identity to handle this thing called life that's in front of me? So when you see me 4 years in the future, remember this word love and pay it forward.
If you could drop these mics, I would let you drop them, buddy. I love you, George, man.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for doing this. It's hugely cathartic for me.
Good. Yeah.
Life-changing.
Me too, homie. FNRad shoutouts this week to George Pappas Jr. Since this interview, George has remodeled the house he's in into a recovery home. I mean, it doesn't even look like the same place. It's amazing. George is running a sober living house out of his new space, helping people in recovery by providing a safe space run by someone who knows how important that is. A few weeks ago, George beat Joe McLaren, the 8-time world slalom skateboarding champion, and he qualified for the World Skate Games in Argentina at 57 years old. McLaren's only 29. He's been granted an early release from parole. That's a pretty big deal. And probably most importantly, he's reconnecting with his son, Joey. A few days ago, he wrote me, quote, "I want to add some audio about my son, about how great I feel to be a father, and my shame and guilt about my lack of parenting and how that contributed to me spitting out, as well as to talk about how much he means to me, how he's back in my life now. I listen to the podcast through his ears and see my ego and pride, and I know that I must talk about our relationship." End quote. So we may add an update and tweak the episode to include some of George and Joey. For now, it's important for you listeners to know that George Pappas Jr. is doing awesome. If this episode spoke to you, please reach out. George is active on Facebook, and you can message him there, and I can get him a message if you want to send it through me. I'm sincerely thankful that George gave of himself so freely to the listeners of this show. As I've said many times, George's brother Chris Pappas was head coach at Wendell's the summer I went. George's mother Charlene Pappas and George's father George Sr. deserve a huge mention here in the thanks, as does George's childhood friend Shane Enholm, who I recorded with earlier this week for the episode. Wise words, Shane. Thank you very much. And go check out Shane's band Flower Leopards if you're into punk rock, and pick up his book Tattoo Machine Discourse Volume 1 if that's your scene. Support rad people. This is the final episode of Season 7. Over the summer, I'll be working on making this thing a video podcast. There, I've said it out loud. If you've got feedback for the show, DM us on Instagram or message us on Facebook. If you're interested in supporting the show on a sponsorship level with your company, send an email to fnradpodcast@hotmail.com. And I've set the date of June 15th to have my ducks in a row for a fundraising raffle, so please stay tuned. The FNRad Snowboard Podcast is presented by Vans and brought to you by SIA Productions.